Welcome to the Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self governance. We have a full house today talking about the recent victory of Argentinian now President Javier Milei. Whatever you think of him, we're going to break this down. We have awesome people right here. We have Insanity is Free Jeremiah from Agris Nexus and EXE on Discord. Go follow him. We have from the awesome server as well, Mad Liberty, Free Folk. We have Mike and Lofty. And from Conquering the Divide, we have Daniel B. and also TJ. We have different views on this, which I think is good. We're going to keep it healthy and respectful. I'm just going to throw my 2 cents out there. For a very long time, I considered the fact that libertarians would never win in elections to be the default kind of consciousness and precedent. I expected Javier Milei to lose. Now, I think there's some good things about this, and I've talked with this about, with a lot of people who are pretty knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than me. And a few positive, there's positives and negatives. I'll take a objective view, which is this. It sets a precedent that actually liberty-minded people can win elections. And I was almost on the Samuel Conkin train of saying, forget elections, let's just do agorism. I've switched now because he won, and I'm like, wait, Mises Caucus, let's run more people, let's do more political action. We got, even if he's the worst libertarian in the world, it shows people are willing to vote libertarian to get some freedom. There's a consciousness there. He wants to get rid of a lot of government, which to me, that does not make you a fascist if you decrease government size. Granted, he has some bad positions. I'm not a fan of Israel, the pro-Israel Ukraine, or I'm a fan of, or the dollarization. But I'll say this, but I don't think Tom Woods made a good point. Who cares what his foreign policy is? United States, I care, because they'll send like a war. They'll get involved in Israel and Palestine. They'll get involved in. But who cares what his? He's not going to send troops, in my opinion, anywhere. The last thing I'll address is this: he wants a market for adoption. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but technically, I would say this. That's a complicated issue. If somebody is not able to take care of their children, and I've even said Putin is wrong for this. If somebody is a couple or whatever couple configuration, they say, we're willing to take care of this kid who has no parents, the kid actually gets parents. Maybe that's not a terrible idea. I'm not saying I completely defend it, and I'm not saying he's going to be the best president or the worst president. I am saying let's see if he decreases some government, gives it a chance, despite some of his bad policy positions and authoritarians he's quoted. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion because I am not an expert. And then I'll close with a couple of things sent from my libertarian friend in Argentina who voted for him, doesn't like him, and one shout out. So the floor is yours, guys. Please don't talk over each other.
I mean, I can just lay into him if y'all want.
Go ahead. Say what you think about him.
All right. So, Object 1, his influences. If you want to talk about like what a band sounds like, and what their influences might have been in order to get a feel for who they were, you can generally get a feel for where their music is coming from by looking who they say they were inspired by. He is inspired by the friend and supporter of many Nazis and pedophiles and
sorry, you cut out there, Jeremy.
Torturers in the Augusta Pinochet. Oh, okay. He is the friend of a bunch of Nazis and rapists and pedos and torturers in the form of Augusto Pinochet.
What do you mean by that exactly? What do you mean?
Augusto Pinochet, during the Miracle of Chile, which Javier Milei directly supports, he had this thing called La Colonia Dignidad, and that was full of a bunch of Nazis that ran the place, literal ex-World War II, escaped Nazis, probably helped by the rat lines through people like the CIA-sponsored Reinhard Gehlen organization and Paperclip, which were two separate things, one of which was the direct result of doing things like, the Operation Cyclone style. We're going to fund the people because they're against Russia, help us fight Russia, and we'll continue to arm, train, and fund you. It was like that, only they didn't need to arm and train them because Reinhard Gehlen already had his Nazi spies. but that's a off.
So
in the beat.
how
That's
is
for
he
another
how
day.
is he
But, like,
friends with
because
Pinochet exactly? He died in 98. I don't understand what you're saying. He was just starting university around that time.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying his
Oh.
influences. So
Oh,
basically,
okay, I see what you're saying.
he supports the miracle of Chile. The miracle of
Can
Chile
you
involves torturing
source
people.
this? Is there anywhere where I can look this up to make
Yeah,
sure
you can literally look up La Colonia Dignidad on Wikipedia, and you can
Okay.
find out about their pedophilia. That there were like boys raped. There were women tortured and raped. There were people crushed with tanks.
Can you send it to me? Because I don't know how to spell that. Sounds like Spanish or something.
It is Spanish. It's Chilean. So basically, I'll send a wiki link here.
Yeah.
Actually, what I'll do instead of that, come to think of it, I will share it on my screen.
Okay, that's fine.
And basically,
but still send me a link for it so I can read through to make sure.
Yeah, and I'll pull that up for you. And
1 moment, I have it up.
I see it. I pulled it up on Wikipedia. I'm going to read it here. And I quote, Colonia Dignidad.
Can you real quick, sorry. Can you send it in the chat, the private chat for me?
Yeah, 1 moment.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Lofty, sorry.
Hold up. I'm typing up.
He's going.
Lofty, are you pulling up a quote, Lofty? Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm literally typing in the link because I'm using my phone as a mic and I'm using my computer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
we
got it pulled up. There we go.
I found it. Thank you, Jeremy, by the way.
All right.
Okay. If anyone wants to read it, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to look at it myself.
No worries. Yeah, but I busted the mic port on my computer, so I have to use the phone until I fix it. Yeah, it's a lovely little time. But I hadn't even heard about this. This doesn't look good. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it's one of the things you'll find if you talk to me long enough. I'll just bring up all this fucking dirt.
But what I'm trying to figure out is where is the source connection of Javier to this?
Well, I'll get to that. So
I mean, it would be important to kind of put that first, so we kind of know where that's coming from.
And I was about to get to that when we were, talking in the original thing before we were getting to the actual La Colonia Dignidad source. I mean, I can just say that now. Basically, this was a key part of Augusto Pinochet's regime. He protected this guy, Paul Schaefer, and a bunch of other Nazis that worked there. And basically, the La Colonia Dignidad served as a punishment center. It served as a place where people would be sent for dissidents. And because they were too communist, it was part of the regime's way of scaring people into compliance. There were lots of deaths and all that sort of thing. And that, along with the death flights, along with the killing people and beating them in the street, along with the soaking them in piss vats, all of this came in place of actual authentic freedom. And it spurred a great shift in the country because everybody of leftist leaning left or was exiled or was tortured to death or was murdered. And so he had this right-wing government afterward, which was very well supported by the CIA, the West, and all of these neoliberal organizations. He also forced them onto the IMF and a bunch of loans and globalist policies. And as a result of his neoliberal Western state capitalist-backed regime, basically, the country did a capitalist turnaround and started to support capitalism. And a bunch of people ignored all the human rights abuses or pretended that they weren't as bad as they were or lied that they didn't happen or all this other stuff in order to pretend, or just said communists aren't people. That's a very common thing to hear from right libertarians, by the way. So basically, they would do that, and they would ignore all of the reasons that the economy turned capitalist, and as a result, say that Augusto Pinochet did a miracle of Chile. And you can look up this Wikipedia article as well, the miracle of Chile, and you can find that basically it's just a euphemism for the regime of Augusto Pinochet, and the fact that a lot of libertarians claim that he turned around the economy. Javier Milei supports this. Javier Milei claims that the miracle of Chile should be the model of Argentina.
Can you send me that
while
that
he's
quote,
doing that?
or whenever he said that? I need to see that so we're not misrepresenting people.
Okay, we'll do.
But I think we should kind of send it now because it's important to kind of do that. You know.
Yes, and I will send that, but I'm also on a flow right now, so I'm going to keep that flow going.
Well, I don't understand what all this has to do. I get it. You don't need to go over an entire history of another subject. We're just talking about Javier right here.
Subject.
If you want to show what he said, about
if somebody was inspired by Hitler, it would be totally fucking reasonable.
And guess what? If someone was inspired by Hitler today, I don't have to read the whole story of World War II and Hitler to just say, here, this is a statement.
But it does help to know, and this isn't something people fucking know about.
A long diatribe.
I'd rather talking over me rather than letting me fucking finish.
Because I think this is pretty pointless. Just send
what he said. Pointless. This is literally his
inspiration. We don't need an entire history on
Yes,
Pinochet.
we do. Clearly, you understand. You asked
first of all, I do know who Pinochet is.
Holy shit!
You didn't know about this.
Yeah, I didn't know about this specific thing, but I am familiar with Pinochet. I'm aware he is a lot of people. What does that have to do with Javier? You need to show. If you want to link what he said, fine. I'm all cool with that.
This is valuable to bring up.
Okay, for what reason?
Okay.
Because of all the reasons I just said.
Jeremy, I get it, guys. If we can, tone it down. Let's keep it respectful.
Yeah, and if you hadn't have talked over me, I would have.
Because this is nonsense. We're talking about Javier. We don't need to go through a whole rant on.
What I do want to say.
I was asked for my source. I am providing.
That's not what I asked you for. I didn't ask you.
You literally did.
Yes, because you were talking about it. But then immediately after that, I asked you for what is before that. Actually, I asked you
how does Javier Milei link to this?
That's
what we want to see.
Holy crap!
I did that.
Sorry, Mike. All right, Jeremy. I get what happened. I'm familiar with the story of Augusto Pinochet, and even I disavowed it. I don't think it was real capitalism, because with real free markets, you have an absence of government. And I'm not even going to deny that Javier Milei said I don't like things about leftists and things about the left. Fine, but my question is, and he might have even been inspired, but where does he specifically say
I need to see that
Javier Milei that I'm inspired by Pinochet? Correct. Where does he say
the miracle of Chile?
Well, yeah, just send me the link and source for that, and I'll.
Okay, and see, I would have gotten that done already if I hadn't been talked over.
But I asked you before that.
This is you talking over me again. Shut the fuck up.
All right.
If I hadn't been talking over,
you were ranting for 10 minutes straight about something that doesn't have to do with the conversation.
For 10 minutes straight with me talking.
Okay. Guys,
to be fair, there's a lot of people out there that don't actually know that. Just because one of us knows about it doesn't, or
it's not about that.
It is about that.
It's really useful.
We want to make.
I was told we're having a debate about Javier Milei, right?
Am I correct? This is background on Javier Milei.
Okay, first of all, no, it's not. It's a
Yes,
story.
it is.
I read.
Not.
So, is there any links in that Wikipedia article that Javier Milei was involved in? Okay. I understand that you gave a brief overview of it.
No,
That's
that
fine.
he was.
I'm not wrong with that. I want to know what
if you had just shut the fuck up, I would have already been over that.
I'm waiting. Send the source. I don't need you to talk. I need you to send me where you saw this.
I don't need you to talk either.
Okay, go
Jeremy,
ahead. Send the source. I'm waiting on a source.
Guys, keep it respectful. Show me specifically. Get the source.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Think about this. If we can't cooperate in a 6-man room, we can't defeat the state. Even in the Israel. In the Israel-Palestine thing, I've argued if you can't have a one mic solution, you can't have a no state solution or a 2-state or whatever. So here's the thing. I want to keep it on Javier Milei. I understand that I understand what happened with Augusto Pinochet. They took power from Salvador Allende. It was a CI coup. And then, yes, the helicopters, how he killed people, pig fat. Now, I wouldn't call it capitalist per se. It was kind of fascist because you still – well – that's fascism to me, or corporatism. Let's call it corporatism.
They all lead to the same fucking space.
I'm a free market anarchist. I want free markets and small businesses and WordPress sites. But where specifically, if I Google Javier Milei,
I just want to see the source. That's all I want.
Where is he? Yeah, where is the connection?
Because I looked it up for a while and I couldn't find anything. Him talking about this.
Like I saw the Guardian said. He's a Pinochet wannabe. I saw RT say that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't trust RT.
Yeah, it's RT.
But here's the thing. The Guardian, RT, and a lot of these mainstream publications, I hate to say it, a lot of people have been labeled far right. And it seems to me if you oppose not real leftism, not Malatesta, not Bakunin, not. But if you oppose Bernie Sanders, like, or Biden, or Trump neoliberalism, it seems, and I do consider Trump a neoliberal, for the record,
Yeah.
or a Democrat, that they call you hard right, and hard right is thrown around like candy so much it's difficult to know if someone's an ANCAP or a conservative or whatever they are. I'm not. So that's the thing. Now I'll
Well,
give
it's
Jeremy some.
important that they muddy those waters.
Yeah.
I will give you. I'll give some credit. If this is true, Javier Milei gets linked to Pinochet wannabe is on Methane right here.
Yeah,
So,
but I think I saw what you were talking about, Kareem, and that wasn't anything about him saying that. That was just them saying like they view him as that way. Like they've already called him like ultra right, super. Literally,
Yes.
if you go to his name right now, as soon as you look him up, he's called ultra conservative, right wing populist, right libertarian. Like right
correct.
3 times in there. Okay,
Ultra
here's my
conservative. They're just
Here's my-
adding in new fucking words to make everyone political sound like some sort of
I do
fucking
kinda like that.
superhero.
Yeah, has he found his Trump? You know, like, here's the thing. Like, here's the issue. Media. Here's my problem. Like, if you click on this, and I was reading this earlier, I shared this, and in Argentina, Javier Milei faces a massive radical libertarian is taking over the country. Is he that radical? To me,
Yes.
to Jeremy, to you, to us, probably not. He's probably
I
like
mean,
a
to
standard.
normies, he is.
Yeah, but is he actually? See, and that's a problem with the media. The media has labeled so many people pro this, hard right, you know, associated with this, and it's not necessarily. I'm actually saying what Jeremy is saying is true, but I am saying, to be fair, I'm inspired. There are people I'm inspired by who are not really that great or didn't follow the NAP. Like, everybody knows I love Gigi Allen, and he punched people and threw poop and said horrible things and so he's not a good dude. But, like, yeah, I have some less than ideal influences, but I haven't seen his governing style yet. Maybe he just cuts a bunch of government programs and says things, and it's okay to say I don't like. To be fair, you can say I don't like ANCAPs, I don't like leftists, I don't like this, I don't like whatever. Have that opinion. I'd be more concerned if he actually hurt people or violated the NAP.
Yeah, and what makes me a bit suspicious about that claim that Jeremy's trying to make is this guy has. I mean, in 2018, he was ranked one of the most viewed economists on all television. I mean, he has a radio show. There's years and years and years and years of his work that's made public. He's been writing and he's been a professor for over 20 years at this point. I feel like if that were true, given the way the media already feels about him, given the stories we're already seeing, I'm sure they would put that in the articles. And I haven't read that anywhere, even in the worst of worst hit pieces. And if that is true, that would be, I mean, that's a massive hit piece right there. And I'm sure some news organizations would absolutely use that. So the fact that I haven't heard anything in regards to that yet makes me a bit suspicious.
Because I have a video of it somewhere. I'm looking for that right now. It's
when
a video during a debate.
Okay,
a debate with him?
Yes, he was debating with other people on the debate stage.
Okay. Now I'll say this: he hit Libermir. I don't think he hates the ATF, so I got that out of the way. And he does tell me that every day. He hates the ATF, so he doesn't like them. He called himself a libertarian. That means we winning. This is exactly what Konkin warned about. See, I kind of have the Konkin-Rothbard divide, where I'm more on Team Rothbard, where I say, okay, the political system exists. Nolan and Rothbard put something together. Let's use it. But I also understand Konkin, too, because you need an agorist method of promoting awareness. You need Eric July. You need Jack Lloyd making comic books. You need Daniel making podcasts. You need Jeremy's agorist nexus. You need all those counter economic ideas to get out there as well, because it's not just enough to run candidates and say, I guess Joe Jorgensen got 3 or 4%. So
there you go. So there's a YouTube link there to him praising the way Chile handled privatization and saying that he supports the miracle of Chile. It's in Spanish, and it's a 30-minute long debate. So
does it have captions with it?
I think so, but it's like standard YouTube translation, so it might not be 1-to-1. Either way, you can look up where the word Chile
I can just
shows
look
up.
at the transcript. Let me just look at the transcript.
And he also literally named his pets after the Chicago Boys, which means he was connected to, like, he knows the connection between the Chicago Boys and Chile. He knows the full history here, and he still supports it.
He named his dogs a dog whistle.
Basically.
That's so fucking cringe.
Yes, it is.
Like,
do you know where in the debate he says it so I can translate it? Because it's not let me translate the.
One moment.
Yeah, I'd have to. I'm actually pulling that up now. Lofty was going to say something, so let Lofty have the floor, please. And I'd like to hear from PJ too.
I was gonna say, like you were given the divide between Rothbard and Konkin, the counter economics versus engaging the political system as it is right now. Yes. I mean, I would say you might as well. Somebody go run, like might as well. The opportunity is there, but I would say that my action that I would do would lean far, like I would go beyond what you're giving as Konkin. I don't believe it's even enough just to do the counter economics. I believe that you need to directly delegitimize the entire system and actively build alternatives to it that people can engage in.
So I posted the timestamp, by the way. Just go for it.
There's a concept that I like to use. So like way back in like ancient Roman times, there was a handful of events. They were called the Secessio Plebis. Okay. And to put it short, it was basically when the like during the Roman Republic, right? You know how they had the plebeians and the patricians, right? Yes. So occasionally the patricians would overstep their boundaries, and the plebeians would just get sick of their bullshit. And so I kid you not, they would literally abandon the city en masse and leave the patricians to their fate.
It seems like a very statist thing to do. Now, here's the thing. I like Konkin for the counter economics, and I do believe you have to delegitimize the whole system, like having Turtle Twins, like having Eric July come up with things, growing your own gardens, everything. But yeah, I'm in the middle where I agree. Jeff Berwick said this from the host of Anarchast and Anarchapulco. We have the political system; we might as well use it. So I'm kind of on the same team as you, Lofty. And however you can delegitimize the state, I think, is the best thing. And regardless of whether Milei or whoever wins or whatever wins or this party, I still think it's absolutely necessary to do that. I'm going to share this. The timestamp is 28. So I'm just going to go. Sorry, guys. Trying to juggle everything in comments, so bear with me.
No, you're good. Take your time, man.
I changed the subtitle. You just changed the subtitles to English. It is going to be 28, so we're going to look here at 59. Okay. So Javier, private sector in Chile gave the routes are done by the private sector. Guys don't go. They don't owe you. So it's because that the work doesn't have to exist. Nobody values it, or else you believe, what does a price system reflect if it's not my fault? Let's say that.
This is the garbagest translation. Holy shit.
All right, I'm gonna put all the words into an actual translator.
Politicians who say you need it.
It would guaranteedly be better than this.
Then someone is going to pay for it. Yeah, I apologize. My Spanish is elementary. It does, but what's the state for where it is? So
and then go to 3134.
Okay.
Where he's literally saying that the government before Pinochet was terrible and he turned it around.
34. And I'm not actually a fan of Salvador Allende either.
Fair. Allende's kind of a piece of shit, but also.
So this is what I'm seeing for that 2858. I'll just read the translation. And again, this is missing the context before this, so it might sound a little weird from the beginning. But the mere fact of paying salaries to all the operation, that makes the work. And then he says Javier, and then Javier says in the private sector in Chile, gave the routes to the private sector. The guys don't go, and they don't, and they shouldn't. So it's because that work doesn't work. Again, this is tough. It has to exist because no one values it or thinks it's what the price system reflects. So right here in that timestamp you gave me, he's talking about the private market. Mm-hmm. And all I can see is Chile routes. And he's talking about pricing and how pricing works.
And then go to 3134 for more on that, because he elaborates later.
Okay. We're going to have some bad translations, but bear with me here because
the one online is a lot better. It's still like in a conversation, so
yeah.
You know how it is. Like if you translate mine and take it out, it's going to sound weird, Okay, what was that? What was that other timestamp, Jeremy?
3134.
Okay.
3134. All right. Where are the sorry. I'm getting there, guys. Bear with me. I'm trying to be a good host here. All right. So I'm going to use the Chilean style private initiative system because it's what the Chileans used when they came to government. They did not have a handle. Everything was overturned because the unpresentable Allende was a disaster. And then he did design a mechanism for the private ones to do it. Javier Deer on the weekend. I had to travel to Mecca's in Bahia Blanca. A lot of my guests travel.
Now that's that guy talking though.
Okay. So here's what I'll say. I know this is going to sound crazy. I'm a fan of David Friedman's work, and David Friedman, not good, was behind Pinochet. Now, if we just take...
No, Milton Friedman. Not David Friedman.
Milton.
Friedman disagrees with a lot of Milton's conclusions.
Sorry.
Milton is a minarchist, and David is not.
Yeah, Dave's an anarchist. Sorry, I said Dave. I meant Milton.
Okay, just clarifying, because we're friends on Facebook. I don't want him to get the wrong impression.
Yeah. Dave, I don't know if
I would characterize Milton Friedman as an anarchist.
So I just want to read this quick.
No. He's a minarchist.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, I'll read this little translation from what I'm getting. So again, you're missing the before context and whatnot. But he says it's the public that works. And it sounds like he's saying the government, the state doesn't generate jobs. And it generates corruption. I'm going to do, and then it cuts off from 31 to 28. The public works should be zero. And I'm going to use the Chilean style system of private initiative to refocus the market. When they came to power, the Chileans didn't have a handle on anything. That's what it looks like. And everything was overturned because of the unpresentable Allende. I don't know
Allende. Allende was the previous guy.
Okay, Allende is a disaster, and then he came up with how to design a mechanism for the private company. So it doesn't sound like he's praising, what's his name there, Pinochet. It sounds like he's saying the private market is obviously the better way, because I don't see him anything here like praising his authoritarianness.
It literally is. It's saying,
but it's not. I'm reading the
translation. Pinochet didn't create a freer market, though. Like what?
But he didn't even mention his name. He didn't even mention his name.
If I said post post 2018,
okay, well, I'm not going to use this. This is so thin. I cannot use this.
It's not fucking thin.
Dude, he says, I'm going to use the Chilean style system of private initiative. He doesn't say a time. He didn't say after what?
He just did. He said after Allende.
No, that was three paragraphs before, and then okay, let me read it to you in the notes. Here's what I read. I'm going to be quiet and be calm. After he says, I'm going to use the Chilean style system of private initiative, there's one more line. And then the line before that, after talking with the guy, he said, Allende is a disaster. And then he said how they did come up and design a mechanism for the private companies to do it. That's literally the whole statement from everything that last.
After
I don't understand how that's
a disaster. They turned it around.
Was he saying that? Did they?
Literally. Kind of? He's saying that. He's praising the work after Allende. That was after the coup.
Okay, so real quick, because I don't know my history when it comes to this very deeply. I have an understanding about the coup, the CIA, and all that stuff. So who was Allende, and was the economy under him very bad?
Allende was the previous guy, and the reason the CIA and the neoliberals backed Pinochet was because Allende was doing nationalization of resources and taking things away from the multinational corporations who were looting Chile. That's the reason. And look, you can say what you want about socialism, right? Everybody's got their own opinion on it. That's not the point. The point is that these mega corporations were looting Chile. These mega corporations were looting a lot of Latin America. Chiquita literally like did mass murder. Texaco did mass murder. All these mega corporations were looting these countries and doing mass murder. And they didn't care about the workers. They didn't care about the way the land was treated. They were destroying the land, looting the resources, and taking a lot of this like economic profit for themselves and not enriching the local economies. Allende recognized this and tried to uproot that. And the Western like neoliberal order got offended by that. And they like installed Pinochet. They helped his military coup. They helped him like once he was in power. They helped him through the IMF and the CIA. They helped him through like Western exported Nazis and their Colonia Dignidad regime. They helped him every step of the way because he was helping them reestablish neoliberal state capitalist order. And if that takes mass murder, they're A-okay with that.
But I understand what you're saying.
Correct.
But he didn't say anything about he didn't like praise the mass murder. He didn't even praise Pinochet. He didn't mention him. All he was saying is from where it was. This is what I'm saying. This is what he said. From the translation, this is what he said. The guy before, who again, I'm not claiming to know a lot about him, but he said the guy before was a disaster, and what happened next with private markets was better. That's what he said. He didn't say, Pinochet was the best or blah, blah, blah.
He's going to use that model. He said that model.
Okay, wait.
That model was all about Chile.
But after he didn't use the word model. What are you talking about?
He said he's going to use the Chilean model. That's literally at 2059.
He didn't say that, actually, but that's okay.
He did say he's going to use the Chilean model. I did see that. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
He said he wants to use a Chilean-style private initiative. That's what he said.
Yes,
not a model.
Style is a model.
Semantic as hell.
Yes. Let's not argue over this because this is not. Here's what I'd say is I understand what happened with Salvador Allende because my dad explained it to me in the CIA queue, and that is correct. Yes, that's historically correct. What I'm saying here is, though, I don't know if Javier Milei is going to do and I would very much be surprised in the age of social media, because we all have these, that he's going to do anything remotely close to what.
Not only that, this isn't like some like outright endorsement. This is like, again, if you want to take that interpretation, that's fine. But this is so far stretching it. Okay, I'm not going to use this as to say I'm definitely it's not that I'm not trusting it. I'm reading more of the translation so I get more of the context. It sounds like he was praising the private market under Chile after the Allende disaster. He didn't say that he necessarily wants that now. He indicated, and then after that the private market mechanism of that. Okay, fine. Listen, here's your interpretation. Fine, whatever. Let's say I grant you that he was talking about that, and he said that. Well, first of all, he didn't. Like, this is so far astray. I don't know. Okay, what was your original statement in the beginning? When you were doing your intro, what was your statement in the beginning?
My statement in the beginning is that he's inspired by the Chilean miracle of Chile, and he fucking
But he didn't mention the miracle of Chile, did he?
He did! It's the style!
Okay, the style, you can say, hey, this system is bad, but the private market aspect, however long that lasted, I don't know, was good.
Of Nazi Germany.
Yes,
right. That doesn't mean someone likes Nazis because in the beginning they started the private. What? Are you ridiculous?
No, actually,
that's an insane
wait.
They like their style.
Here's the thing. I can like someone's economic style without liking their personal
ideology or even the way their government is formed.
Actually, here's the thing. I quote, like, I'm against authority, but like I've quoted Stalin probably more, like, the writer is the architect of the human soul. I swear if you say that to like a supermodel, she'll date you. I hate Stalin. Here's the thing. Also, I do like some, concepts of minarchy from maybe the Han Dynasty or maybe Hong Kong. I don't want to emulate. I don't like everything they do. I don't like everything someone does, but I can separate someone's economic system from someone's social system.
They're the same thing.
They're not.
Socialist.
But here's the thing. There are people, I can say I believe in free markets and everything and have bad social, things. I can also have bad economics and also be good socially. I do actually agree with Danny here that, look, even if I don't think Javier. Here's what I really think will happen with Javier Milei. He's going to have a socialist Congress. He's not going to get anything done, and people are going to say, "Ha ha, you libertarians don't get anything done." He might say some good things about him, but he's not going to hurt anybody, in my opinion, other than maybe making tomahawk steaks a little cheaper, so you eat too much meat and become like Liver King. But don't do any of that stuff. TJ, I haven't heard from you, and if Mike, you have any opinions, I'd love to hear them. Then we can keep going back and forth. Try and keep it respectful. I get we get heated. I get heated, but I'm trying to be calm, dude. TJ, you there?
Yeah. So I don't know much about this whole thing. I saw in the news like a couple of days ago. So I want to get just a perspective on everybody's, kind of position as far as. Let me ask it this way: Who, if let's assume that everything, that this guy's, akin to Satan, right? So what were the other options, and how does everybody think that Argentina's society should be handled given its current situation?
Okay, well, you have Massa, and he's literally just more of the same. I believe he's like a left Peronist, or a Kirchnerist, if you will. He was the economy minister, and you know exactly how fucking Argentina's economy is right now. So.
Oh yeah, never mind. This was taken completely out of context. Now that I read like way back, yeah, he's talking about currently. Currently, he wants to use the Chilean private initiative. Like he was talking about it now, in the sense with education. Yeah, so that was completely out of context. It was. You can read it. Start from 29 and go all the way forward. He's talking about education and how education. I'll just read the exact quotes.
Okay, do that.
Education.
You're going to find that he talked about Allende right before he said this.
I get it, but let Danny read the quotes, please.
I just want to read this real quick. Financed by taxes. What does it sound like to you? Taxes is a remnant of slavery. You know that. Let's say what happened. Say what happened to Israel. What happened to them in Egypt? First, they were free. How did they go after that? Progressing. They taxed them as they were progressing. They taxed them more, and then they wanted to tax them again. They taxed them 100%. They made them slaves. So let's say after Moses, and he takes the Jewish people out there. Give me this answer. I need to hear it from you because this is a program. Very educational. Is that public work does not generate employment. It generates corruption. I'm going to do it. And my guess is he's talking about the government, like how we talk about the public sector versus private sector. I could be wrong. That public works should be zero. And I'm going to use the Chilean private initiative system to change that because that is what I am going to do. Chileans used to, when they came to the government, they didn't have any money. Everything was overturned because of the unpresentable of a land. Well, it was a disaster. And then he gave the design mechanism for the private Javi to do it. So again, he's talking about himself. I had to travel to Mecca, and I don't know how to say this, Bahia Blanca, at the weekend. I do not live with a lot of guests. Some traveled with mine. I am from Saint Victor, Santa Fe, to join the plane there. Yeah, but he sounded definitely in the current context. Like he wants to currently, like if I were to say, I want to use the United States private system to change whatever his policy
is. The travel line was the interviewer. You're taking it out of context.
I'm reading the entire transcript from 29 down. I don't understand what you mean I'm taking out of context.
If you look at the place where the travel was discussed, that's the interviewer.
What are you talking about? What travel? So what
you just read?
Well, I read more than one thing. That's what I'm trying to say.
And I said the travel thing.
Oh, the travel thing? Okay, that doesn't even really matter anyways, because that was after he already clarified on it, talking about the public works and that the public doesn't generate employment, it generates corruption, and that he wants to use the Chilean private initiative to change that. Yes. And then he said, that is what I am going to do. Okay, if you want to say that that's him being influenced by Pinochet, not only is that a stretch, I would probably consider that a mischaracterization. What does everybody else think?
It's not a mischaracterization.
Okay, but Jeremy, here's the thing.
It seems a bit disingenuous.
It's TJ not disingenuous.
Guys, TJ, okay, here's the thing. Try and chill. But here's the thing. TJ brought up, in my opinion, the best talking point in politics ever, which is let's say he is, everything is true. Jeremy's 100% correct. And I'm not saying he's not, but let's say he is. And we're living in a world with constraints, and just like people say, well, it'd be great if everybody had, the neoliberal fashions. It'd be great if Afghanistan had democracy like we do. They don't want one. So what's the relevant institutional alternative in this case? I get sometimes, and this is me saying, hey, I'm an anarchist. My ultimate goal is anarchy. Just like I say with Israel and Palestine, we need a no-state solution. But let's start with a ceasefire negotiated by Egypt for the first steps. Then let's go down the line.
Mm-hmm.
TJ brought up an excellent point. What's the relevant institutional alternative if this guy's the worst? Is Massa really going to be like that much of a difference or great? And in my opinion, there's also something else to look at here. Even if he is terrible, and I'm going to use the Trump argument, which I don't like Trump. I don't like most of what he did, like 99%. But that shows that there's a dissatisfaction with the current establishment. It shows that people don't like at least being ruled over in the fashion that they're being ruled over. They want more freedom. I think that's a good sign in the Argentinian public, not for Milei, but it's a good sign that people are more open. Now conservatives in America are trying to adopt libertarian ideas, even if they're not libertarian. Like, I'm not saying Vivek is great, but I am trying to get people to adopt more like, okay, look, I don't like Elon Musk, but he's like, okay, Hayek. You know, Jack Dorsey tweeted out Anatomy of the State. I'm not saying any of these people are good. I'm saying it's changing the overall collective conscious, if you believe that.
It's making it worse.
It's making it worse. All it allowed it to do was all that Trump's shit allowed it to do was appropriate the terms and the spaces and fill them with a bunch of nut job, like literal, like bigots
Fascism.
and fascists and shit. That's one of the reasons why everything seems so fucking dire on this end anyways, is because people are willing to jump for a win. And
Right,
I believe that they learned that from the Libertarian Party.
So okay, so really quick. Is it Jeremy? The Insanity is Free? Is that
Yep.
Is it Jeremy? Okay.
Jeremiah, yeah.
Okay. If I forget your name, I apologize. Congratulations. Congratulations. You've just been elected a leader of Argentina. What do you do as their leader? What are you changing? What are you leaving in place?
Okay. All right. This might be an interesting thing to ask. All right. Let me workshop this for the bit. First thing I'm doing is I am at least going to interface with BRICS. I am going to talk to the international parties that seem to be against the U.S. hegemony, because one of the things that has driven Argentina's economy down so far has been the West and their sanctions. BRICS has become resistant and resilient to Western sanctions, and effectively they have decided. A lot of countries that are either in BRICS or associated with BRICS have decided that the U.S. is no longer going to be able to shut down countries like they did Russia. Now, I fucking hate the government of Russia. I am not a big fan of any of these governments. I would never get elected to Argentina to begin with. But magically, I am the guy in charge. The first thing I would do is aggressively attack any nation that happened to be trying to interfere with Argentina's economic interests by finding alternate trade routes. If the U.S. does not want to do business with Argentina on Argentina's terms, my first step would be to nationalize anything in Argentina that is owned by the U.S., U.S. controlled. I would try to take back the administrative power to the best of my ability from the people who basically pocketed a bunch of government loan money and used the IMF to leash the Argentinian economy to the present state. I would do all of that while rigidly opposing any American politician who wanted to stick his greasy little fingers into Argentina's economy in the form of sanctions. And I would also oppose any country importing or exporting that had anything to do with helping bolster that policy. Basically telling the Argentinian economy that absolutely I will encourage private sector stuff here. But if you want to do business with the governments that are currently trying to control us, crush us, and squeeze us out, and the mega corporations and banks and International Monetary Fund, which all enable them, I'm going to tell you to fuck off. And I'm going to do all of this while trying rigidly to encourage private enterprise by offering e-citizenship to any foreign investor who wants to be an Argentinian citizen, set up a shell corporation in Argentina, whatever they need to do.
Okay,
and I'm going to do this for the effect of garnering enough revenue to pay back all debt relatively quickly, so that Argentina can be, put back on track relatively quickly. And I'm also going to encourage, by way of my presidency and my association with BRICS, a unilateral ceasefire in every place where there is currently a war spearheaded by the U.S. government. And I'm going to use that with the intent to push all the economies associated with the American hegemony away from power.
Okay, so real quick, so I'm not too familiar with the sanctions the U.S. has on Argentina. So why do we have the sanctions there? What is the U.S.'s reason for the sanctions?
The same reason it always gives: stop them commies, stop them leftists, free enterprise, free markets, whatever they have to lie about in order to get these policies pushed forward. And they're going to effectively, illegalize anything that doesn't back the Western state capitalist hegemony. And sanctions in this case were designed to stop allegedly leftist presidencies. And they're going to, consistently damage the Argentinian economy until they're lifted. And there's two methods by which they're lifted. One method by which they're lifted would be the capitulation to the state and the U.S. dollar, which is what Javier Milei is going to try and do. He's going to try and normalize relations between the U.S. and Argentina by making Argentina into a vassal state through the process of dollarization. And then there's the other process, which is the reason that the Pinochet regime got installed, which is taking the Argentinian economy off the U.S. hegemony's required list and doing imports and exports on the terms of the Argentinian people, rather than becoming a vassal state of the Western hegemony. And the sanctions basically are designed to prevent that. The sanctions are designed to keep Argentina on the hook and keep Argentina at least exporting and importing on U.S. terms. If they ever stop doing that, the U.S. loses access to quite a bit of oil, metals, and other resources.
So what are the sanctions the U.S. currently has?
Yeah, real quick, that's what I was going to say. I can't find any sanctions. It says currently we maintain bilateral relations with them and don't have sanctions with them currently. And it didn't even say we had sanctions with them in the past. It said it's one of the countries we've been pretty friendly with for a very long time. Anyways, go ahead. But if they have sanctions, I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't see it anywhere.
I just don't understand why we would sit around trying to pick the lesser of three evils. Like, that's never really gotten us anywhere before. And you do risk the fucking chance of the fact that this guy is appropriating Ancapistan for the state. And also, like, in order to be an actual free folk of any flavor, you have to put your principles down and pick up the gun of the state and use mob rule to even get there. How could you trust that going forward? How could anyone maintain their principles as a free folk of any flavor and act as a president in any fucking way? You can't.
Okay, that's a good point, Mike. I'm not saying first of all, I don't think Javier Milei is a free folk. I don't think he's going to be, joining any free folk organization.
No, he's just appropriating the ANCAP name, and they're just allowing it because they want to fucking win.
Okay, here's the thing. It's not really, I don't live there, so it's not so much I'm allowing it. I'm saying this, not that he did, if he gets rid of government organizations, which because I'm a Rothbardian, I say this: if somebody wins an election, whether it's local, state, or whatever, and someone wins an election tomorrow and says, Kareem, I'll get rid of property tax, I'll get rid of the DMV, and I'll get rid of some stuff that's useless, I can get behind that for some temporary, okay, I want to buy a house, and I don't want to worry about because I make crazy business decisions being an entrepreneur. I don't want to lose it because I couldn't pay property tax. That's fine. We're self-interested. That would help in self-it. So is it the ideal situation? No. But is it from a consequentialist perspective in an imperfect world where I do believe in the concept of free folk, and I also do believe in the concept of trying to reduce the state and trying to reduce government involvement in everything, based on the institutional alternatives in this case. What's the best option? Me and Jeremy argued for a very long time, was Somalia anarchy or not? And really, actually, I stopped that and said, fine, it's not. But then I said, like, look, Jeremy, here's the thing. You're not going to get a Rothbardian society probably in Somalia. They don't even know who he is, or Hans Hermann Hoppe, or Kropotkin, or anything. But given the alternative with Mohammed Said Bari, who was running rampant and crazy, versus warlords that had a power equilibrium, what's better? And I said, hey, Jeremy, would the warlords at least be better, closer to decentralization on a scale? So I'm taking a scale of what's less bad. I'm not saying Javier Milei will even live up to that. I'm saying there might be a chance. He's not a free folk. He's not ideal. And personally, in the best world, I don't believe in choosing the lesser of two evils. I don't believe in choosing evil at all. That's why I like Rechtenwald and Joshua Smith. But I don't know that other than the adoption market, which I don't fully understand, I don't know if he's evil or misguided. And maybe
how do you make a change that even matters? Like, how do you bank on a change that even matters when you're keeping the system intact? You can't create more freedom from a top-down situation. You can only create the illusion of it, because it's temporary at best. And what I meant by allowing it is by platforming it and cheering for it and going, yeah, that's our boy and shit all across the internet. So you may not be doing it, but I got eyes that see and ears that hear.
I did it. Me and Jack Lloyd. Okay, look. I say this: Spike Cohen, Joe Jorgensen, me and Jack Lloyd, and a few others in the Mises caucus. My friend Max Henry, maybe I don't know and David, my friend David, who was going to be here, but he got busy, but he'll be on next time. I said, okay, and other people said, look, this at least gives the if you want to call it the inspiration for, look, ANCAPs can get their ideology out there, and their ideology can defeat, at least through a construct, neoliberal or other leftist, conservative. I shouldn't say leftist, but neoconservative.
Yeah, but what happened to all those glorious memes about how if your idea is so great, you don't have to force it? Like, you can't do that as a president. You can't even become a president without forcing it. You're using democracy. It is mob rule. That is gang rape. You are enforcing it. And if your ideas are that fucking great, they don't need that.
Also, like, I was going to finish my whole thing out with, I wasn't going to be able to do any of this because I get my brains blown out.
Well, the moment you tried.
I was about to call you out, like you're about
no
to.
shot.
That's a
You'd have a plaque in the middle of the road, like JFK.
Yeah. Hey, someone did say Jeremy F. Trump over here can have a wall too.
It's not exactly the first time I've been compared to Trump either. But like, okay, like, this is the thing. The first link I sent, since I sent the last time.
Yeah, I was wondering, what is that electoral thing? I don't know what that is.
Platform.
Okay, I thought so.
That is the official government site of Argentina's electoral like platforms.
Okay.
And so basically, what you can do is you can look down to line 2, where he says he's going to militarize public institutions for a transition period. That's what he says he's going to do. He also said he's going to build public-private prison partnerships. He's going to make it easier to imprison people. He's going to mandate forced labor for prisoners. He's going to reduce the age of being considered a minor, which makes it easier to lock them up. And he's also going to create a nationwide surveillance network of cameras with facial recognition technology. This man is a fascist.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Jesus Christ.
What line is that?
Look in your document for a line starting in por todo le expuesto.
And here's the thing. if he does do all that, I'll say, look, this guy was a liar. He's not an ANCAP. Look, he's complete fascist.
He's already a liar. This is
How far is this down? Are you talking about
being a president alone? He's a liar.
Are you talking about the second one underneath the first one that says expresido? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, puesto.
So real quick, this is what I'm getting from it. To promote liberal policies that contribute to economic, political, cultural, social takeoff, Argentina needs return to being the thriving country that we were at the beginning of 1900. La Libertad Avanza proposes a government that promotes personal development of its inhabitants, guaranteeing the freedoms conferred by the national constitution, and that respects and encourages effort and merit. The proper administration of areas of government will provide the necessary tools for the full development of people in context of social and economic, which vindicates the values of autonomous and critical and free thought. That fosters the culture of creative, rational citizens who transmit values that call for personal and collective growth, such that we can project ourselves as a modern, reliable, thriving society with values. The same La Libertad Avanza, we promote efficiency, transparency, meritocracy, personal effort, the defense of the right to life from conception, respect for the rules, and honesty in the administration of the public resources as the fundamental budgets to achieve a society fair, thriving, and modern, where its inhabitants feel proud to belong to Federal Renewal Party and mark the path of growth and the fulfillment of personal objectives and collectives. Diagnoses and national electoral platform.
Ignore the planks, though, because that's just like a bunch of political buzzwords.
What planks? What do you I'm reading from the bottom. That's what I was reading. That was part of what I just read.
Yeah.
And it didn't say anything about making prisons or anything like that. I mean, I can keep reading if you want me to.
Yes, it fucking does.
I'm reading the translation right now. I've translated it in 3 websites. Here, I'll just put the text right here.
Here, guys, put the...
Well, you might be talking about a different line.
Keep the text. It might be a different line.
I'm reading from the...
Cambridge? Is it the Cambridge?
That's the one. I clicked the first one. It says electoral.gov.
Well, here,
this is part of what I was reading right here. This is the beginning.
This is what I'm reading right now.
Yeah,
this is right here.
Hit your control F and then search prison.
Wait, is that Spanish though?
Institutos.
Does that?
We're talking about an Argentinian.
I know, but I don't know how to speak Spanish. You understand that? That's why I'm trying to find out what line that is.
Ask people who do what this means, and they'll tell you.
I see. I see where you are. I see where you are. No, I see where you are. Okay, I see that.
Okay, just guys, chill out. If you want to, please zoom in, grab that, put it in Google Translate, and let me see what it says.
All right, let's do this one.
We don't live in Argentina, so this is one thing. Even if this guy is like the devil, and even if he's worse than Netanyahu, which that'd be a little bit difficult, but let's say he is.
I'm gonna. Sorry, go ahead, Kareem.
Okay, if this guy's worse than whoever, Pol Pot, pick your Idi Amin. We don't live there, so I don't think it's worth fighting over this. Because
I'm going to just read the part that Jeremy was telling me. I didn't read that part. That was further down. Finally, the third generation of reforms include the profound reform of the health system with promotion of the private system, free competition between companies in the sector, a reform of the educational system, and the expansion of a non-invasive security system for the population, and the elimination of co-participation, economic reform. These are his 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of bulletins in relation to the issue that is foreseen: elimination of unproductive state expenses, optimization and shrinking of the state, incentives for the creation of genuine and quality jobs, 4, privatization of the loss-making public companies, 5, promotion of private investments, 6, expansion of the national road network, interconnecting the different transportation options, transportation in order to facilitate local, interprovincial, and local transfer and exchange, international merchandise trade, the installation of new investments, and the strengthening existing ones. And then 7 is creation of ports and airports in vital points of the country as well. 8 is improve highways, roads with private investments in order to favor the exchange of goods with the countries of the region, provinces, and municipalities. 9 is review the property lease contracts paid by the state to its use and manage its replacement by unproductive idle assets whose ownership it is from the state. 10, encourage private investment for the execution of works that promote trade and regional economies and promote the exchange of products throughout the national territory. And then this is 11. And the third stage, the elimination of the central bank, 12, currency competition that allows citizens to choose the system freely, monetary or the dollarization of the economy. 13, immediately release all exchange stocks. 14, eliminate withholdings on exports and import duties. 15, unify the exchange rate. And 16, promote the treatment of the rental law throughout the national territory. And then it says that provides the agreement between the parties of the time and conditions. And then it goes further. But that's what I just read that you were pointing to right there with all those lines.
Mm-hmm. And it also includes militarization of public institutions for
Where
the
do you see
transition
that?
periods.
Of
It's
what I just
number
read?
2. I have it highlighted.
Okay, this is what number 2 says when you translate it. And I translated this twice. I'll translate it again to another system. Optimization and shrinking of the state. That's what that translates
That is not what militarization means. It says it.
It doesn't. I know. I understand that. It doesn't say militarization anywhere. I don't like. That's
It
what I'm trying.
fucking says it where I highlighted it.
Okay, but I took what you were talking about. I highlighted it and I put it into multiple translation prompts. And if anyone else wants to do it, maybe I'm missing it. But I put it into multiple translation, and that's not.
One moment, because whatever translation things you're using are.
I mean, I could be wrong, but
there's
again,
that
is
Wikipedia
much different
on
than militarization.
It's not different. Look.
Okay.
Look at the word. It looks like militarization.
It's the word militarization.
I know. I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying.
Translators suck.
It's probably the context that they're using it in. It's probably tripping up the translator.
Yes,
it could be. It could be.
Let me try this one more time.
Here's one problem.
Look at the Wikipedia article I just linked. It's militarization. If you look up militarization spelled that way, it's literally militarization.
I think you're further down. This is what I'm trying to figure out where you are. What number are you at right now?
I highlighted it.
I know, but there's multiple ones. So 2. There's like multiple sections.
Okay.
Here, I'm grabbing it as well.
I'm trying to find it.
Then
just going to look for that militarization thing. You know, I'm just going to. How about this? I'll translate the whole thing.
Okay, I'm still going to play devil's advocate based on what TJ said and based on what Leeson would say. Okay, some of this is absolutely not ideal. Give me the relevant institutional alternatives in this case, not the ideal situation.
There we go.
I do like ideal situation. I'm not against, but like this, I don't think the other guy.
I already did.
Okay, these are our options, right? We have Sergio Massa, who is left-ish Peronist, like a center left, if you will.
Yes.
The Minister of Economy did not go well, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So that is that's our guy who ran on the runoff and lost. Okay, because Argentinian elections, they have the first round where they go and see like who is going to be running for each party. Then they have another round where they vote everyone, and if nobody gets like a decent majority, they have a third fucking round, and then they have the top 2 run, and then that's what happened in this case. And so what we had 3 other people who were defeated in the first or in the second round. Sorry, you had Patricia Bullrich, who, from my understanding, is very close to Massa, like maybe slightly more leaning, but like very similar. Former Minister of Security. You have Juan Sirat. I'm not pronouncing this shit. It's too late at night. Anyway, he's just a Peronist, just literally running with the Justicialist Party, Peronist Party. And then you have a trot. You have a fucking Miriam Bregman. They're literally a trot, and that part and the party they're running with is kind of just a joke. I'm gonna be honest. They get like 2 or 3% of the vote every year.
Hey, I don't know any parties like that.
So quick question. So I'm looking at a couple of economic freedom indexes, and Argentina ranks pretty low. Yeah. What are they? Are they essentially like has their goal for the last 100 years been communism, or what kind of
no. So Peronism, from my understanding, because Peronism is like the most batshit insane thing.
I read that on his Wikipedia. He's like really opposed to that, I guess.
Okay, so Juan Perón, I believe is what his name was. He so his entire political ideology, right? He literally spoke to like Mussolini about fascism, right?
No boy.
But
let's
get
so
any of
real
like
quick. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but let's just put individual politicians' personal ideologies to the side. What kind of economic system have they had for the last 50 years?
Okay, well, I'm getting into that. So like Peron himself basically just talked to Mussolini, right? Thought he was a pretty cool guy, but what he wasn't a fascist. He didn't understand what fascism was. He heard fascism, was like, oh, that sounds cool, but he didn't get any of like the actual bad shit from fascism, or bad as like a lib would see it. He basically is Peron was basically just a spicier FDR.
That doesn't.
Okay,
Yeah,
what did he implement? Was he the leader of Argentina over a certain period of time? Okay,
yeah,
so what did he implement as far as economic policies? Was it largely wealth redistributive? Was it restrictive, highly regulatory? What kind of policies are we talking about?
It's like you have some nationalization, you have some like big corporation support, you have and you have like a decent welfare system. It's just like spicier FDR with some nationalism thrown in, basically.
Wait, so you said nationalism and then corporatism. Which is it?
No. I mean like nationalism as like nationalism thrown.
I'm sorry. I'm confused.
Yeah, but is it
I'm trying to
nationalism or
understand
Those are
what
different.
exactly is it more of like a command economy? Like I'm trying to figure. I'm listening to you. I'm not understanding.
It's corporatist.
It's a corporatist is a okay. If you were speaking to an ANCAP, which I am, they would probably call it a corporatist thing. From my understanding of corporatism, I would not call it corporatist, but it's definitely leaning into that, but I wouldn't call it like fully corporatist.
Well, I'm talking corporatist as like not the weird thing that like a lot of ANCAPs say. I'm talking like corporatist as in
the real technical definition.
Okay.
Collectivist,
yeah, I know.
third way, like semi-fascist.
That's the real actual definition of the word corporatist. That's actually the technical one right there.
Like organization of society by corporate groups such as agricultural, labor, military, business, scientific, or guild association, blah blah.
From my understanding, which is
I gotta use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Because this whole thing is just is a mess, and I don't speak Spanish yet. I'm working on it, but
yeah, neither do I. I just I can read it.
Yeah, so it's kind of just like a state capitalist thing, if you will. Just
yeah.
You're just
extreme
generic
state capitalism.
Yeah. Not to a corporatist degree, but like leaning in there.
Okay.
But it literally no, I mean Peronism, like Peron literally like espoused corporatism.
Okay, so it was a rhetorical thing. Like I said, he talked to Mussolini, but did not actually understand what Mussolini was talking about.
Sure, but he still espoused corporatism. Mussolini didn't even espouse corporatism.
Yeah, he did. He said fascist. He literally coined the term, man.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't coin the term, no.
Yes, he did. He said fascism should more rightly be called corporatism because it's the merger of corporate and state power. Even if I misquoted or he misquoted,
that was somebody else saying that about him.
He literally.
But that's still how fascist Italy is a communist organized. At least
literally is called fascist Italy. Like he admits it. He's not like, oh well, no.
Well, no, Mussolini never used the term corporatism.
No, but he used the term fat. If you're like Mussolini, you're a fascist, bro. He's like, heck yeah.
Yeah,
know it.
He was a fascist.
Corporatism is the economic system of fascism.
Yeah, but okay. So that's
corporatism. To me, like fascism has corporatist elements, but it's not strictly corporatism.
No, it's another word for it, as far as I'm concerned. It's like saying,
it's not.
Fascist to me is you're a part of the state and you go and give preferential treatment, like in today's society through lobbyists or Congress. You say, okay, I'm going to give preferential treatment to this corporation and make everybody not compete. That fascism and corporatism are to me the same thing. It just means the merger.
How familiar are you with Umberto Eco?
Sorry?
How familiar are you with Umberto Eco?
I've heard the name.
You should look into his like planks of like his defining characteristics of fascism. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, from what I've been reading, the only reason why I was reading about this because I was debating this. I was telling Kareem about it. This kind of like new wave fascism. He was telling me about this new theory, this super niche theory about like commissary fascism, where it's like a panel, you elect a commission, and that commission elects a leader. And then digging into it, I found that there's like many different types of corporatism, and fascism isn't exactly the same exact thing. Like you can have corporatism in fascism, but they're not exactly the same thing. There's different types. There's different types of corporatism, like kingship, communitarian corporatism. There's all different types. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So like Umberto Eco, he has a list of 14 defining characteristics of fascism. I'll read through those briefly. The cult of tradition. One only has to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi gnosis was nourished by traditionalist syncretistic occultic elements. The rejection of modernism. The Enlightenment, the age of reason, is seen as the beginning of modern depravity. In this sense, fascism can be defined as irrationalism. The cult of action for action's sake. Action being beautiful in itself, it must be taken before or without any previous reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. Disagreement is treason. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism. Sorry, I lost my track of thought here for a second. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism. Is in modern culture, the scientific community praises disagreement as a way to improve knowledge. Fear of difference. The first appeal of a fascist or prematurely fascist movement is an appeal against the intruders. Thus, fascism is racist by definition. Oh, okay, yeah. One moment. Here, let's see your message in the chat. 6. Appeal to social frustration. One of the most typical features of the historical fascism was the appeal to a frustrated middle class, a class suffering from an economic crisis or feelings of political humiliation and frightened by the pressure of lower social groups. 7. The obsession with a plot. Thus, at the root of the fascist psychology, there is the obsession with a plot, possibly, and I think it's fascist, but I'm not sure. Possibly an international one. The followers must feel besieged. 8. The enemy is both strong and weak. This is fucking huge, by the way. Every time you think about like anybody's rhetoric in the future, keep 8 in mind. The enemy is both strong and weak.
Real quick, I just want to make sure you're talking about the Italian guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure.
So, by a continuous shifting of rhetorical focus, the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. Think like, trans people, for instance. They're simultaneously in control of the entire media and the entire apparatus of the state, but at the same time, they're the weak, little, terrible people that are going to destroy our genetics. Very, very fascist mentality. 9. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. For fascism, I'm just going to say that. I don't care. There is no struggle for life, but rather life is lived for struggle. Contempt for the weak. 10. Elitism is a typical aspect of any reactionary ideology. 11. Everybody is exhausted or educated to become a hero. In a fascist ideology, heroism is the norm. This cult of heroism is strictly linked with the cult of death. 12. Machismo and weaponry. Machismo implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits from chastity to homosexuality. 13. Selective populism. There is in our future a TV or internet populism in which the emotional response of a selected group of citizens can be presented and accepted as the voice of the people. And 14. Speaks newspeak. All the Nazi or books made use of an impoverished vocabulary and an elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments for complex and critical reasoning. So all of that, I want you to think of all of that in context of the rhetoric employed by Javier Milei, and you'll see that both he and people who support his ideas and also the ideas he supports, like the Chilean government, they employ fascism on a routine basis. Like by Umberto Eco's like extremely good definitions here. Like, I think that these things like directly drive at the heart of this particular issue. Javier Milei's campaign could not thrive without the use of this kind of fascism.
Do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
Just asking, is the what you just read, that is from Eternal Fascism: 14 Ways of Looking at a Black Shirt?
I don't actually remember, but probably. I'll send a link.
Yeah, I was looking on the Wikipedia page. I believe this is what it's from. I would like to read this now. This looks interesting.
Yeah, he's. I've heard about him before. He's like a credible guy. But I was going to ask you, Jeremy, what do you think? Do you think if he? Well, he already won the presidency. When I don't know. When is their inauguration? Do they have an inauguration, or is he like in power now, or
like the 10th of December?
Okay, the 10th of December when he actually gets in and makes policy. Do you think he's going to actually kind of start making these more fascist policies, these more corporatist policies, or do you think he's kind of just do what most politicians do, most presidents do, and kind of not hold their word?
I smelled astroturfing the whole time he was campaigning. I think he's not only going to do it, but I think he's going to do it with the full strength and backing of the rest of the Western hegemony, because that's the reason that they would accept dollarization. They're going to accept becoming a vassal state of the U.S., and the U.S. will be all too happy to assist the transition, just like they did with Pinochet. Like, and that's the same shit that they've been trying with Maduro in fucking Brazil.
So, sorry, go ahead, Laffy.
If I may mention, this is only somewhat related, but Javier has been he's been saber rattling a little bit with the British over the Falklands, of course.
Yeah, I heard that.
Venezuela, sorry, by the way.
That's such a stupid thing.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Do you really want, like, who cares about the Falkland Islands anymore? Who really cares about? Anyway, sorry, I want to ask a question. God, what was it? I lost my train of thought. This is for everyone, I guess. And Jeremiah, if you want to answer,
I'm going to shut the fuck up for a second.
Okay.
Other people go first.
What my question is from everything that I've read, which is not a lot about him, everything you've told me, I'm not denying that he leans more right and even fascist. I'm not denying that. And beyond like what he thinks economically, just his rhetoric in general seems like super aggressive, like calling everyone on the left shit leftist. Now, me personally, I'm not a fan of that. Like, I wasn't a fan of Trump doing it. And I think he's actually worse than Trump in his dialogue. And I've never seen him make a statement about wanting to help the left. Every single statement I've seen Javier make is negative toward the left in almost every way. But so Argentina's in trouble. They have over 120% inflation. I'm not aware of all of the economic problems they have, but from what I can tell, based off just basic numbers, they're not in a good state right now. So putting Javier aside, what do you think they could do aside from, like you say, bringing in the dollar and dollarization? What do you think they could do to actually help their economy and get things moving again without going through this more fascist kind of reliance on the West model?
And I'm going to interject in one thing. Yes, they try to do the same thing. Bolsonaro, I think, is who you're thinking for Venezuela. But what I think they could do, honestly, in my opinion, what I think is funny is this dude says he's an ANCAP, right? And I'll attack him here. If you're an ANCAP, you probably do what, and I know I get he's not perfect, but I would probably do what the president of now I can't think. I'd probably go for Bitcoin.
Are you talking about El Salvador?
He's talked about that, by the way, a lot. He's talked about Bitcoins. I'm not saying he's sincere, but I've heard him mention it a couple times.
Yeah. So to me, I think that honestly what he could do is get away. I disagree with Jeremy. Get away from BRICS. Get away from the dollar. Start utilizing more decentralization. To me, generally generates more wealth because people come up with more ideas and something sticks. Just like if you throw 100 darts at a dartboard, you're going to get more bullseyes. That's the way it works. Nayib Bukele, I think, is his name, the El Salvadorian president. So I would actually interface with him rather than I would say I'm done with BRICS. I'm done with the UN. I'm done with NATO. I'm done with it. Buy Putin. Buy Xi. Buy everybody. Buy Russia. Buy this. Buy Bolsonaro, Lula, or whoever it is. Because I'm not a fan of either. Let's just try and be as decentralized as possible. El Salvador seems to be on the right track, at least economically, in my opinion. You might disagree, but that to me is what could work. Also, one good thing about Argentina is that they have the resources, that they have a rich history. There's a lot of things they can utilize to their advantage here just by trading with everybody, being a neutral partner. I think people forget the utility of Switzerland, which up until recently, I guess they symbolically said they're with Ukraine, but Switzerland has not gotten involved in anything, and so far they've been okay. I'm not saying they're a libertarian paradise, but I am saying, look, you adopt the economics of El Salvador, you adopt the stance of Switzerland, and it would be better.
Well,
I could be
he's
wrong.
definitely not going to do that because he's not going to be neutral at all. He says that the reason he's siding against BRICS is because he's siding with the U.S. and Israel.
Which one is really better? I mean, do they really like it? Wouldn't it come down to, from him or whoever was the president there, which one is in Argentina's best interest? And I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't know if BRICS, like from the perspective of being the president, which one do you think is going to help you the most, give you the best deal? Go ahead.
Well, then let me just say 35% of Brazil's current trade is with like China and Brazil. Yes. Argentina's current trade is basically dependent on China and Brazil, and going with the U.S. hegemony over them will just mean that they have to wait longer to get Chinese and Brazilian resources, because the U.S. doesn't have a lot of these resources, especially chips and metals and shit like that. So what that essentially means is that by denying the membership in BRICS and saying he's going to cut ties with them, because that's literally what he said in that article I just linked, since he says he's going to cut ties with them, effectively what that means is he's cutting ties with 35% of their current economy, which is going to require fucking a massive amount of restructuring toward the U.S. hegemony.
But okay, Jeremy, here's a huge. I actually really disagree, because BRICS is, as far as I'm concerned, a creation of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum.
So is the U.S. and Israel.
Yeah.
I also, real quick, I want to back up your thing,
sorry.
Jeremy. Sorry, real quick.
I shouldn't have said economy, by the way.
And in 2023, this is the most recent data on Argentina. Excuse me. Brazil is their #1 trading partner. Yep. China is #2. And then United States is #3, but down by a couple thousand. So it does seem to be that their biggest trading partners right now are Brazil and China. I'm not saying that can't change, but they seem to be very reliant upon those countries for, like you said, resources and whatnot. But sorry, go ahead.
Okay, but I want to make a point here is this. BRICS is a globalist institution. Whether or not a globalist think tank came up with it, which I'm sure they did. I don't like I'm Egyptian. I'm really annoyed that Egypt's part of it. I don't like globalist institutions. The reason I actually do my whole shtick here, half of my title is anarcho-coalitionist. I'm trying to get ANCAPs and ANCOMs or people for decentralized communities in this, and Capitalist Agorist, whoever you are. Even if you're a primitivist and you say, I'm an anarchist and I'll rub two sticks together. I even got in an argument with Harrison. He said, if someone wants to cut off their legs and call themselves an anarchist, your coalition with them, I'm like, it'd be better than a Democrat or a conservative. So yes. And he even thinks I'm crazy. And that's fine. I probably am. But he should get out of BRICS. He should not be friends with America and Israel. But to me, you don't have to be in BRICS to trade with China or Brazil or Russia, because we do. And we don't like it. And we're
but he said he's directly going to cut ties with them.
Yeah, he has said that one.
That's good. He should cut ties with BRICS. He shouldn't be friends with American. So cutting ties with BRICS is 100%.
If he cuts ties with BRICS, he's going to have that's the thing. He's cutting ties with China and Brazil. He said he's cutting not just BRICS as the potential to join.
But those are their two biggest trading partners as far as
you can still trade.
You can't trade if you cut ties. He says he's going to cut ties.
Yeah. Look, are we part of BRICS? America trades with China, clearly. Everything in Walt.
If America cut ties with China, they would stop trading with China. That's what cutting ties means.
Yeah.
Yes, but
would not maintain relations. Read the article I just sent.
I get it, but America is not part of BRICS.
They maintain relations.
From what?
Okay,
from what
out of BRICS. Fine.
Sorry,
get out of BRICS.
He's not in BRICS.
Okay.
They're not in BRICS. They were offered the opportunity. This is about not only not joining BRICS, but cutting ties.
And again, their #1 trading partner is Brazil, and Brazil, from just a little bit of articles I've read, has been trying to push them to get into BRICS. They're not officially in yet, but from what it seems like, they're moving in that route. I'm not saying that's for the better.
Bad. Here's the thing. I'm against NATO. I'm against BRICS. I'm against global institutions of any kind. Really, I am. I don't like the UN. I don't like the WHO. I don't like the WF. I don't like the BSI. I don't like BlackRock. I don't like
that. But he's also going to be connecting it to the IMF either way, and either way, China and Brazil are their two biggest trading partners. If he stopped relations with them, they would no longer be trading at all.
But what I'm saying is,
if he said he was going to cut ties, usually that means to halt all trading and whatnot. But here's the thing:
I could be wrong.
They're already connected to the IMF, and they owe the IMF a lot of money. They're in massive debt, which I know is a major thing coming up for this election. It was part of the reason why they probably elected him, claiming to be the capitalist, going to change the economy around type of thing. Now, I don't know. Again, I'm speaking on very, very limited cursory knowledge of Argentina and him and what their kind of global trade and economic status is. But if it is the case that currently right now it would be worse for Argentina and worse for the people of Argentina to move away from China and Brazil simply for the mere fact when you move away from trading ties, right? If you're smart and you want to do it, unless something like a war or something major happens, you cut ties like that. If you rely on them for resources that your economy and your society is dependent on, maybe not 90%, but heavily dependent on, right? Say Taiwan wanted to just do something wild, right? Whatever it is, bomb Hawaii, whatever it is, right? We could automatically cut ties and cut trades with them, but that would be really bad for the semiconductors. So if this is the case that he's getting a lot of his resources from there, he can't just cut it off, and that would be bad for Argentina's interest. And I don't think that's a good thing. And that doesn't mean that I'm endorsing BRICS or whatnot. But if he just comes in right away and cuts the deals, I'm sorry, I don't think that's a good idea. That doesn't mean I think he should stay in them forever. But it's tough because I understand what you're saying, Kareem. We don't like BRICS. We don't like NATO. We don't like all different types of organizations because they have problems. And once you get into these larger organizations, you have commitments. Once you have commitments, then you get in the tricky spot we're in now with NATO and whatnot. So I think it all comes down to what's in Argentina's best interest. And to be honest with you, I don't know.
Well, and
here's a dangerous thing.
Come up with okay, go ahead.
Here's another thing. Things are heating up in the Middle East. Okay. And I'm not saying BRICS is a military alliance, but it kind of is to me. I don't think I don't think they have an article. Okay, let me finish.
BRICS is
they're more of an economic organization than they are
an economic. Okay, look. But here's the thing. If we're playing Age of Empires and I'm trading with people and I have troops and you're attacking all of my trading partners, there's no Article 12, but I'm going to be like, dude, you're you're attacking all my sources. Like if you're attacking all my sources of income, like if you tried to shut down my CryptoDex channel, my Fiverr and everything, like I would physically go fight you. Like, I'm not kidding. So here's the thing. Yes, there's no Article 12 in BRICS, but to me, with things heating up in the Middle East, from a praxeological perspective, even if you're losing trade, I wouldn't want to be in a World War. I'm not saying World War III will happen, but I wouldn't want to be in proxy conflicts because NATO and BRICS could really set the world on. And the OIC, if you know what that is, which is a Saudi Arabian construct. Those three global institutions could set the world on fire. So maybe even cutting ties with Brazil and China to not be in a conflict between BRICS and NATO, if it could ever happen, is a good idea.
Okay, so real quick, I just read this. Like we already talked about, everybody knows the basics of BRICS. So in August 2023, at the 15th BRICS Summit, the president of South Africa announced that Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, and maybe the UAE as well, all have been invited to join the organization, and full membership is scheduled to take effect on January 1st, 2024. So that will probably be the day whether they join or not. And you said December, right, is when he has power, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I believe the 10th. I can't tell you for sure.
Okay, December, regardless, whatever the date is. So it's we don't have that long until we see whether he decides to join or not. But yeah, no, BRICS is a massive organization, and I'm trying to think from like if I was the president of my country, if I was the president of Argentina, from whatever country, which one is going to be the best for the people. Now, if you're a big enough economy and you're a big enough country, I'd imagine you don't necessarily need one, right? You obviously need trade for some things, but not rely heavily on these organizations. But given their economic crisis, they need help, right? I don't think anyone's debating that, but they need some help, right?
Yeah, okay, but fine. But if you're a self-defined anarcho-capitalist, you don't join globalist or nationalist institutions.
Mm-hmm.
If you want help, use it through mutual aid. Mutual aid works on an individual perspective, and it also works on a collective perspective. Literally, what he needs to do is say, "Hey, comrades," or if he doesn't like the word, "Hey, voluntarists." Voluntarists and comrades or mutualists, whatever. Take a book out of Pierre Proudhon's thing and get some help where he needs it through mutual aid from other countries or other people.
Other countries like what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I don't know. We have the internet. You have a screen. Hi, I'm the president of Argentina. I will give you this resource if we give you this resource.
That's what I was saying with e-citizenship. It's literally a way for small countries to offer incentives for like capital investment.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I'm still going to really oppose, like, anytime someone says like NATO or BRICS, I'm like, why do these things exist? These horrible.
Okay, but here's the other
if I may
half of
speak.
it. Okay. I've been talking a lot.
Holy shit! They have $46 billion in debt with the IMF. That is massive. They're the top, one of the top 10, one of the top 10 biggest debtors.
Yeah, but what's their
That's a
debt to
lot.
GDP?
I gotta see what their GDP is, bro.
Not good.
What were you gonna say? A potato?
If I may speak,
Potato.
I would.
I was gonna call him that
Rocky,
earlier. I was
man.
gonna call him baked potato. I was like, he might take offense to that
I
because he's
don't
not a
give a
potato.
fuck.
Obviously, I'm talking with him.
Yeah, but I'm an asshole anyway. So.
Earlier.
Anyway, I would argue. So, like, I'm coming. This has to come from a statist perspective. I'm not a statist, obviously, but this is a state that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no cutting around that. I would argue that expanding trade relations with China and Brazil is a good move. Maybe India, we'll see. That's a bit for later, I think.
India's on the come up. We'll see what they do.
South Africa is a meme. Like they had race riots like last year.
But weren't they? I heard. I don't know if this is true. But I heard they were like reverse. Like instead of on blacks, they were on whites. I don't know if that's true.
South Africa is like. It's nearly a failed state at this point. They barely even have electricity in a lot of places.
Okay.
Everything's falling apart. It's really
so basically subtract them from BRICS. They're basically
South
meaningless.
Africa's a joke.
Okay.
Russia. Now, I think this is an unorthodox view with my take on what they should do with Russia. What I say they should do is a lot of people have been trying to flee the country in Russia. A lot of skilled people. They should take advantage of the brain drain. They should say, "We will buy you a fucking plane ticket if you come live in Argentina."
You want a paperclip?
Yes,
yeah,
I want to paperclip the Russians.
I'm not against
Ukrainians.
paperclip.
I'm against paperclip, but also, so I can see where you're coming from with all of that. My deal. Okay, so the general thing here is his goal. If he's going to prove that ANCAPs can make an economy thrive, his goal should be to slash the government. Mm-hmm. Instead, what he wants to do is criminalize the kinds of things he sees as coming from the shit leftists, make it easier to lock people up, especially minors, make prison more profitable, and lock people up so that he can force them to do prison labor.
So what are they doing that makes him want to do that?
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry.
So he wants to lock people up. What is it that they're doing that makes him want to do that?
Any amount of crime. If you watch his Tucker interview, it was ghoulish.
I gotta watch that. I haven't watched it yet. But
I haven't seen
that. But what kind of crime are we talking about?
Like even petty shit.
In the thing that Jeremy was referencing, it was way down. And what I read is basically he said he wants to basically reform the prison system and make a public-private prison system and take away all of the pay of the prisoners and then remunerate their pay. And then again,
they're paying their prisoners,
I guess. And
America pays prisoners.
Yeah,
pays 20 cents an hour. Dime.
20 cents an hour, bro. Fighting fires for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and he wants to take away that. It's like
it's so hard for me because I don't know how their system works. I don't know how their prison system is currently. So it sounds like kind of like the more Trumpian or right wing, like, oh, let's put a bunch of people in prison. Or what was that one country? Was it not El Salvador? Maybe it was El Salvador that they went super in, bro, and started like arresting everyone, and then the crime went down a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll be the devil's advocate here. If you have people who are committing massive crimes like what you have with MS-13, whatever the gang is, yeah, they should be arrested. You should
I'm going to look up their crime rate and see.
Well, here's my question. The person I think who was the most extreme of this was Duarte. Am I saying his name right? In the Philippines. Now, it depends on the level of the crime and what they're doing. I'm not a fan of prisons, private prisons per se, because we have that here and it doesn't work. What I am a fan of is militias taking care of business. Now, he's not doing that. I'm not saying he's a perfect ANCAP dude. He's absolutely not. But I'd have to really understand the level of crime and problems in Argentina before I'm like, good or bad.
Yeah, I mean,
so they actually have a very, very good crime rate. I mean, obviously, no crime is good, but compared to the other countries, from what I'm seeing, let me read this real quick. According to macro trends, the crime rate in Argentina has been fluctuating over the years. In 2021, the crime rate was 4.62 per 100,000 people of the population. This is a 13.86% decline from the previous year. The most common crimes in Argentina are robberies, thefts, both with over 250,000 registered cases. Petty theft and pickpocketing are also common, especially in crowded areas. But compared to I'm looking at some of the other countries, hold on.
Yeah, see, that's something.
I'm going to this list so I can see relative to the other countries real quick.
If I may add, remember these statistics are reported. This is not true because a lot of this stuff is going to go unreported, especially as Argentina's state apparatus is not exactly strong.
Okay.
And most crimes in
so
America
they have a better crime rate than us, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, but we have a stronger state apparatus to actually be able to report
That's
on
true.
those crimes.
That's true.
Okay,
most crimes don't get reported or solved here.
So
if
they have a massive
if
problem,
the crime rate is going. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So if they have a massive problem of people stealing and robbing business owners or the individual populace, I mean, they've got to crack down on that. You can't have it. You can't have a thriving economic environment when everybody's stealing everything from other people,
especially when they're already poor with 100%.
Well, it depends on what the cause of the theft is. Like, are these crimes?
Oh no,
poverty?
That's crap. No, this is. I mean, if we're talking about private,
no, I'm not saying
it's not crap at all.
Private property, and people are stealing private property, you're not going to get investors to come into your country and establish a business, which is what you need for economic growth.
Okay, so how do you fix that?
You don't fix
crack
that
down
by
on
throwing
people stealing
people in
shit.
jail.
I'm not a fan of throwing people in jail.
If it's a poverty crime, you don't stop it by cracking down. That doesn't make it stop.
You do crack down. You do have to crack down on robberies. Are you insane, dude?
No, you have to fucking
if you've
get
been to
to the root of the problem. You have to cut down on poverty. You have to make it so
and
people can
I mean, like, I'm not saying you should just allow people to rob your little mom and pop store or anything like that.
I don't think any place should be robbed, personally.
I don't give a fuck if people rob whatever they have for Walmart down there.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
Even if it is a private corporation, no.
Corporations are not people. I don't give a shit.
Okay. Well, there's people in them.
Look,
there's people.
There's people in them, but here's the thing.
Yeah, they're being devoured by them. Fuck them.
Okay, I actually I'm in the middle of this. I can break this down.
Devour people.
Yes, they do.
They pay their Walmart pays their employees pretty damn good, bro.
Okay, but regardless, fan of Walmart. I'm not a fan of the Walmart. They've done.
I'm a big fan.
I shop there.
I like cheap goods.
Okay, I get it, but here's the thing. Here's what you got. I understand that because this is kind of complex. Yeah, there's a systemic problem of robberies, probably because of resources, which can be fixed by coming up with a better mutual aid or better economic systems or both. Now, people are committing violent crimes. I have 4 things you can do. You can block them. You can get a black hoodie and block them. I'm not saying I encourage that, but I have read into what that is. You can use private security forces, which is more me and Robert.
Yeah, I got to respond to this.
Go ahead.
You can use something like threat management, which is a private security agency. which
I think all that is unrealistic. We're talking about Argentina here. We're not talking about a massive global power. Okay.
Yeah, but you can still All a black bloc is you get your buddies on Discord, get black hoodies.
Don't do that on Discord. Don't ever do that on Discord.
Okay, real quick though, I do want to state something because I was kind of wrong in this. Okay, so their most common crime is robberies, as I stated before, but the extent to which is really bad. And again, I'm not looking at all the data, but they have 2021, 362,566 robberies in 1 year. And when I went to look at the U.S. robberies, it was 267,988 robberies. And I gotta imagine our population is, triple, quadruple the size, dude. That's a lot. That is a lot of robberies.
And that's only
not counting taxes.
Resources is much, much better.
Does this count taxes in the robberies, Daniel?
No, I'm not counting taxes.
No, of course not. Of course not. It's always for thee and not for me.
But that's
we need a census.
That's what I'm saying is that Mike and Potato, they're better on this than and Kareem to some extent are better on this because if you address the root concerns, crime goes down every single time.
And what are the root concerns?
Yeah, I was gonna say let's let TJ respond.
Kareem was pretty clear on that. With he hit it pretty hard on the.
Let's let TJ respond because he's been wanting to talk for a while.
Yes.
Yes.
So you cannot improve the economic conditions unless you crack down on crime, on theft, especially theft.
You can't
do that.
Yeah. You had a comment. Wait.
Just cracking down without improving just makes it worse, though. Like it creates more.
Cracking down without improving. What are you trying to
material conditions? If you want to sound Marxist,
you're gonna have to.
How do you improve material conditions? You have to make the economy safe for economic activity, and you can't have it. You cannot have an economy that thrives or an economy that's safe for economic activity when you have people stealing things all the time. When your biggest
but you're not going to stop people from stealing shit.
Yes, you are. You throw them in jail.
Yeah. No, but look, that doesn't solve the problem.
But here's the thing. There's this theory that poverty causes crime, and it doesn't. However, inequality is associated with high rates of crime. Inequality, where you have one rich neighborhood with one poor neighborhood right near it. That's where the most crime happens. So this idea that poverty causes it is not wrong. I've lived in some of the poorest neighborhoods with some of the best communities.
Correct. I have to support Nanny. Poverty doesn't cause crime. Relative poverty causes crime.
Fair.
And Argentina has tons of that.
All poverty is relative. Our poverty level is
and I get that. But here's how you break that down. You break that down with getting I'd say arrest violent criminals, obviously, and fight back against them with which TJ, you can respond to my private police and defense agencies because I'm probably the biggest proponent of that here. In addition to using black bloc and your neighbors to protect your property. But the biggest thing I see is the way you solve a lot of these problems, there'll always be disparities in wealth. But the way you solve that is through free markets, mutual aid, and decentralized communes, and different forms of ways to decentralize and have peer-to-peer cooperation. Which, if Milei is really for that, then that will improve. If he's not, then it won't. That's the solution over the long term. The Band-Aid is you got to stop criminals now, but the real way to cure something is to implement better economic systems. So there's my answer. I kind of agree with TJ. Yes, in the immediate, you got to get rid of some, but overall, that doesn't solve the problem. TJ, did you have a comment on private police? Sorry.
I'm not on private police, but you can't grow economically if you can't protect property rights.
So here's what I'll say to that. There's an old slogan that I'm probably gonna rouse some rabble here and get some raised voices about saying that Martin Luther King Jr. said that a riot is the language of the unheard. Generally speaking,
I couldn't care less.
Then you're incredibly dumb. The general vibe of trying to solve problems like this is addressing root concerns. And if people don't feel heard, if people don't feel that they can participate in the economy on a normal level, if people don't feel that they're connected to their community, if people don't feel
that has nothing to do with
it has everything to do.
No,
with
it doesn't.
Yeah, and if you would shut the fuck up and let me actually say my shit, I would say it.
Guys.
Okay. So every single time the government increases, so does crime. Every single time there is additional prohibition, there will be additional criminals under that prohibition. Every single time there is increased state reach, increased state involvement, and increased state carelessness, bureaucracy, limits to economic access, and also the gradual tearing of the lowest classes from the means of production and also from the means of economic access. Those things like lack of upward mobility, productivity gaps, automation, exporting of jobs, looting of resources, those will all create conditions where getting a job to begin with, normalized and normative economic participation is difficult at best and impossible sometimes at worst, with jobs being taken up by nepotistic classes of people who are already connected to the whoever is controlling that particular employment. And all of those pieces of employment will be connected to established industries that are already connected to the ruling class. And all of those connections mean that if you try to go against the ruling class in any meaningful way, you will be barred from economic participation. That is a huge component of modern fascism. It's a huge problem in America, in Europe, in so many places. It's it's one of the reasons Russia has such a bad economy, and one of the reasons that they're relying on warfare and expansionism in the present, because Russia has a whole lot of oligarchs and a whole lot of centrally managed people and a whole lot of people directly associated with those in power who control everything. And so Russia's crime rate is relatively high as well. And the fact that they have notoriously some of the worst prisons and the highest levels of carcerality on the planet, that didn't stop the crime. There's still crime, and there will always be crime as long as people feel frozen out of legit markets. Every anarchist knows this.
Yes. Now, wait, that's not what Jackson Henkel said about Russia. So, you know.
Real quick, I do want to touch on something that Jeremy said. I'm not saying he's doing it, but that quote does sometimes get kind of misused, the language of the unheard. That was basically his analyzation. He didn't say do it. He wasn't saying oh, this justifies it. It was just him analyzing during 1967. He was talking about, it was an analyzation. He said specifically he did not justify it. He did not endorse it. He was making an analysis. So I'm not saying you're saying that, Jeremy, but a lot of people on the internet use that as for rioting and looting and violence.
I was sort of just
does it matter? Because his analysis was correct, so.
But he advocated against that, and he thought that riots were not only counterproductive, but they would put you in a worse situation than whatever inhumane situation you were already in. And that's true. If you look at both the people, the more violent people like Malcolm X, who was it that actually got the legislation passed? Who actually got?
I agree with Malcolm X more than
Malcolm scared the shit out of the politicians so much that
they but it wasn't him that was getting the legislation.
And here we are staring down the barrel of a Christian nationalist state.
What?
Woohoo!
What Christian nationalist state? You're talking about Argentina?
America.
Yeah.
What do you mean we're Christian nationalists? What do you mean?
You're talking about how great the legislation was back then, and here we are.
I never said it was great, but yeah, I do think it was good to have legislation so Black people can vote without fucking having to take literacy tests, so they have the same rights as everyone else. Yeah, I think that legislation was pretty good.
Well, I'm not gonna shit on something being better, but honestly, they give and take. You don't understand. Are you just gonna ignore all of the systemic shit that they keep plopping on every person in every box?
What I'm trying to tell you is that before, right, I think it was 1954, the ruling, it might have been Brown v. Board. There was a ruling in 1954 that basically said you cannot discriminate on the basis of race. You can't have separated water fountains. You shouldn't be allowed to fucking stop people from voting. But all the southern states, what did they do? They nullified. They didn't listen to the fucking federal government. They continued doing what they were doing with mass riots, Birmingham and all that. And then come to the 60s, there was still a lot of pressure. And it was Martin Luther King and a lot of his people. I don't care if you want to consider them communists or whatnot, but he was the one who was talking to JFK. He was the one talking to LBJ. He was the one getting the legislation passed, and he had more to do with it than anyone else. I'm not saying Malcolm X is a piece of shit, but he was the one who got those rights, not the more violent people in the street, not the rioters. It was him who got it.
Okay, here's what I'd say. I am for. It depends on, obviously it depends on situations. I'm not obviously, even though Milei got elected, I'm not a fan of voting, really, but if you have to use it. But here's the thing: sometimes riots can be productive if the government has just completely there's no other means to utilize, and then that's the only thing you can do. I can understand where that can come from, especially with Emmanuel Macron and the way he runs his government is really bad. Now, what's interesting is in France, Kill Google did mention if you're objectively in poverty, it is legal to steal food. He also, Kill Google, made a good point. In a true free market, in a real free market, poverty would not exist because subjective value would decide trade. And
Here's the thing I want to be very, 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 very careful about when saying it's very, very clear. When we're talking about Argentina and the crime rate and the robberies, the robberies are what's highest, not the petty thefts, not the thefts, robberies, which has a specific designation in the law. That doesn't mean you're going to the store and stealing a bag of chips. That is robbery. Now, it doesn't mean you have to use a gun. You can use a gun, a knife, or hold someone up without a gun and just threaten them. But that is a big difference than theft or petty theft, going into a store and stealing food, okay? Those robberies are completely different than like petty larcenies in our country. And you can't say that, oh, that's just people trying to eat food, trying to be hungry. No, that's people robbing people, whether it's by gun, by knife, or by threat, which should never be tolerated. And all the people who committed those crimes, if, again, found to commit them, should all be in prison. And we can debate how long. But the point is, they need economic reform, and they need judicial reform, and they need multiple things at once, right?
So are you guys actually suggesting that so are you guys actually suggesting that they should not be cracking down on robberies?
I'm not. I think they should, personally.
I think that people should stay strapped and defend themselves when people are violent against them. I don't think that they're. I don't acknowledge
their gun laws are insane. You understand that? Like when we're looking at these other countries, we're not talking about America and some of the Western countries that don't even have good gun laws, like Canada. But imagine Canada, but 20 times poorer. Okay.
Build communities. We protect us.
You cut them off like right when you're saying that, though.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
We should. So what Mike is saying, if that's your name, if I remember, what Mike is saying is instead of cracking down and increasing the power of the state and increasing the power, like the amount of people in prison, what people should be doing instead is decreasing the size of the state so that people can carry guns.
People.
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends, but it depends.
Decreasing the power of the state so that the common person has more economic power to begin with.
But it depends entirely on what the state's doing. If the state is the government has a role in society. Now,
it does not. It has absolutely no role in society.
We are not arguing on the fundamental basis of whether he's ANCAP or not. We're talking about what's actually going on in Argentina, right?
Well,
there's no country that's perfect ANCAPistan. So I'm not saying that you guys are wrong in your beliefs and theory about how you think a country should best perform. But we're talking about in reality, okay? So
yeah, and in reality, they should remove all gun laws.
Well, reasonable action and thought process is for the minarchists. You're not going to get reasonable from us. Anarchists are unreasonable at this point, no matter where you are.
All right.
And there's plenty of unreasonable anarchists.
I think that's a fair characterization of anarchists, because I've met anarchists.
Am I unreasonable? Look, here's the thing. I think Dr. Leeson's one of the most reasonable people.
Well, by society.
Fair enough. But even okay. I honestly have showed the most rational people lectures from Leeson, Dr. Robert Murphy, and David Friedman, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Now, do they actually go and implement that? No, but they're like, funny enough, I've shown hardcore Trumpers like the libertarian art, everything, the basis for it, like laid Leeson's arguments out, laying Robert Murphy's arguments out, and they're like, that's a lot more reasonable. And I said, here, instead of building a wall, here's how you decrease this problem. They're like, yeah, but they don't really actually go through that. So I don't think anarchists are unreasonable. As Michael Mouse would say, the unreasonable people are the statists who think you can have psychopaths with a monopoly on force, and that will lead.
To be fair, they're the majority, so to them we're unreasonable, and I'm okay with
All right.
that if that's coming from them.
I'm not an anarchist, but what I'm saying is when talking about stuff, we can talk about the theoretical, what we think should be done, and maybe depending on what argument you make, I might agree with you that would be better. But talking about Argentina and the crime rate and the robberies and whatnot, they rank 104th in the worst gun ownership per capita, which is really bad. 104th behind Brazil, behind other countries. So the idea that they can just defend themselves right now is out of the question. Now that doesn't mean that can't improve over time, but it's going to take time regardless of whatever
they're going to have.
Go ahead, Mike.
They're going to have to do it because if they just start arresting people and that's all they do, it's not going to fix anything.
But no one's saying that's all that they're going to do. First, before they have a lot of people have guns, they might want to try and put away as many of the robbers as possible. You understand what I'm saying? And then when
an argument?
No, I don't understand what you're saying because like the cops aren't doing a very good job as it is.
You bring out 100,000 guns.
Doing it anyways.
You drop out millions of guns on the streets. Who do you think is going to go and get those guns?
Everyone.
Okay.
Also,
what
percentage
of the everyone do you think have committed robberies or violent crime in the past?
Keep in mind, this is Argentina. The entire police system is extremely corrupt. You can very easily bribe these people.
Exactly, and I'm not arguing for him, but this is Javier's thing in his platform. He's saying he wants to reform it, make it less corrupt. So that's what his initiative is.
Yeah, good fucking luck.
Yeah, good.
So then, what do you do? What do you do? What is the solution to the problem? Then you can't arrest people. You can't
get rid of the police and start teaching people how to use these fucking guns. And nobody's going to be dumping guns on the streets.
I never said that. It was a hypothetical to show. Go ahead.
Hypothetically, nobody's going to fucking do that.
That's the whole point. That's why it's called a hypothetical.
Correct. TJ was trying to say something, and I'll say something.
Yeah, I was trying to say a thing. So if you don't do anything about the theft and the robberies that are taking place in Argentina, you haven't decreased the size of government. All you've done is shift governmental power to the people who are committing the robberies and the thefts.
That's what government is.
That's
true. I mean, that's all it is. And we're not saying not to control it. We have a different way of trying to fucking combat it than you do.
Mm-hmm.
So what way do you think they should combat it?
Like you're trying to put it in the hands of the state, and we're trying to put that in the hands.
And what I'm saying is that if you don't have the state crack down on that, then all you're doing is changing the state from the elected officials to the people who are committing the robberies.
Why on earth would we trust the state
guys,
do any
actually,
of
here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. And here's how you do it. And I get Argentina's poor, but so is Detroit. You get a private security force, like threat management, private security, private police.
But how do you do that though? How do you do that?
Well, he's an ANCAP. So what you do is you find people who are specialized in defense. You get a company to vet them, and you also take time to understand how they work through different thought patterns. Threat management wears cameras. In Detroit, they question people. And what threat management does specifically is try to deter crime, not report on it after it's done. So I would prefer private police that have the incentive to deter crime, specifically because if they don't, they'll lose their customer base. And you get competing private police agencies to keep them in line, and then that will help deter crime. Will he privatize police? I don't know. I
prefer it be mutual defense.
Yeah.
Groups.
Also, it doesn't make much economical sense in my mind because these police, like, who is paying for the police? That's going to be expensive. Someone has to pay for that, and to pay someone to have to.
Well, you also just said that they were corrupt. You just said they were corrupt, so you might want to get the people who are stealing money out, and then probably cut down in size, kind of like what Elon did with Twitter, and not have as many.
The people who are paying off the corrupt guys are the people who are fucking robbing
So I have been in places.
What do you have anything to like cite that? What are you talking about?
Yeah, but here's a problem.
Do you think the people, all the people, the 300,000 robberies, are all those people are fucking all corrupting the cops? From my understanding, most cops become corrupted from the top, the department, the agency, and yes, there's certain people that do bribe cops, of course. But to say that that's the entirety of the situation, I don't think is a fair and accurate analysis.
Well, it's not the entire situation, but it's definitely a decent component of it. This is literally Latin America of all.
It's a component, but I'm saying, go ahead. I'm gonna let other people talk.
Mind throwing the source to that real quick, because my thing is, let's say there are let's say tops, right? Not to be too Ben Shapiro, and let's say my way through the conversation, but let's say that there are 350,000, right? 350,000 robberies a year, right? Like, I think I'm rounding up, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, just go with that. That's fine. Yeah.
350,000 robberies a year.
It was 362. Not that it matters. I don't care.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll say 375. There are 45.7.8 rounded up million people in Argentina. That means that if all these numbers are accurately reported, and if all these numbers are like there's one person per robbery, which there probably isn't. There's probably one person to multiple robberies because they get good at it and it's a crime ring issue. So even if we go a one-to-one unrealistic steel manning position here, giving the absolute most charitable case to your position, that is a tiny, not even fucking 3% of the population engaging in robberies. And that means that the rest of the 97% of the population, if they were armed, if they were capable of defending themselves, if we dropped guns on everyone and everyone had guns, those 97% have already chosen their side, have already chosen the side of not being a criminal, or they relied on the criminal enterprises because those criminal enterprises were Robin Hooding for them, which is always a possibility that the robberies are done on mega corporations primarily, or things that control the economic interests of Argentina. So there's all these factors, and there are all these factors that mean that basically you liberate those 97% of people. They're probably not going to join the people that they already weren't. And you do that, and you do it at the same time as slashing restrictions in a bunch of other ways, investing in public infrastructure, trying to solve the economic concerns and make life better for people. They will turn to crime less, especially if your country is better off because it's doing more with its own economy and relying less on the economies of places like Brazil, China, and the US. So the general thing here is, as always, we need to reduce the size of the oppressive machine so that people stop lashing out. And if we want to actually do a reduction in crime, crime is the result of conditions that engender it. The lowest crime countries have the best structure, the best community. That is true. So, if you want to lower robberies, if you want to actually solve the problem, rather than just put the people who are the results of the problem in a box where you're forced laboring them, if you actually want to solve the problem, then we would get to that root cause, solve all the economic concerns that make people inject themselves into a life of crime to begin with. And they wouldn't do that because even by these crime metrics, about 5% of the population are this sort of serious criminal. So about 5% of the population, that could be cut so quickly if that 5% had their economic issues addressed. That's what's the case here. It's the case in it's like Rat Utopia, for instance, addiction. Every time you increase the quality of life, the quality of circumstances, you reduce maladaptive traits. It's psychological. It's scientific. Every study proves it.
And I don't doubt that, but still, there will be people who act out of malice or just people who
are
not good.
I still think. Listen, I want to touch.
Yeah, that's not
going to be even.
It is true.
I want to touch on that. Okay. Here's what I want to. Go ahead, TJ. If you want to say something, go ahead.
So you're saying. So I'm trying to understand. So the reason you're saying the reason people are committing robberies and doing all this is because your solution is that we need to invest more government resources into it.
No, I said improve the social structure. I didn't even
What does that mean?
I didn't even say government. If you wanted to inject money into the Argentinian economy in order to buy them a homeless shelter, or like improve one of their public parks, or solve one of the problems of the crumbling infrastructure Javier Milei himself complained about on Tucker Carlson, and in various other interviews, if you wanted to solve these problems inherently, that would be a thing you could do without any government power, just a PayPal account.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm talking about as an actual viable solution for Argentina, right? There's
Yes,
going to be
and
some
it's a
people
viable solution to,
it could be, but in
spending money on
reality,
the other programs and massive prisons and surveillance technology and making it more of a cage, freeing it.
But don't you agree, Jeremy, that not enough people are going to be able to send money through PayPal over there to make any dent in anything, mainly because people are mostly poor, even here? And also, I want to touch on something you said, because you brought up actually a good point. The part about a very, very small percentage of the crimes being committed by the same people, because we saw this in New York City, right? It was like it was like 3,000 people committed like over 60% of the crimes. I could be a little off on the number.
Yeah,
but it was
cartelization, gangs.
Yeah, it was around there, and it was a really small amount committing most of the crime. Okay, so let's take that, because that is true. That's what's called the Pareto principle, and that's true not just in crime; it's true in a lot of things. So you do that. You go hard after these people who have committed crimes over and over again, who've been in trouble, who aren't just like stealing chips or anything like that, but committing robberies, hurting people and whatnot. You go after those people, you hit them hard, and you could say while you're doing that, or even before you're doing that, cut rid of a lot of the police slack, a lot of the bloat, I guess, and get rid of all the cops who seem to be corrupt. So that way you're kind of doing what you said, right? Like you want to limit the state because you don't think, you could put in 40,000 more cops. I think everyone here would agree. I mean, just because there's 50,000 more cops doesn't mean the crime goes away instantly.
It would probably increase because people would feel more oppressed.
Well, here's the thing. Here's a statistical thing that I do know. The crime goes down in areas where cops are more frequent to be at. I do know that for a fact. In neighborhoods where cop cars are around and cops are generally around, the crime is lower. So, I mean, just police being present in an area
can
reduce
life
crime.
expectancy.
My what?
So it's your dog's life expectancy.
What are you talking about?
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
He's so okay. Here's the thing. First off, Mike is making a joke that cops shoot dogs. It's funny.
Okay.
We as anarchists
they
can laugh a little.
Shoot dogs, but that doesn't have anything to the point that I was saying.
And then secondarily, you're like that is a correlation, right? And you could just look at the correlation in a vacuum and say that the correlation between increased cops and decreased crime rate means that upping cop number means crime go down. But additionally, there are multiple things. First off, the areas that are most heavily policed are the richest areas. And those areas that are rich areas have low amounts of people to begin with, bigger properties, less people living in them, and much more money in those properties. And that's why the police are there. They are controlling markets. They are
But can I comment on this?
They're protecting markets. And that means that effectively, if you're talking about like these like heavily policed areas, you're not just talking about heavily policed areas. They're not policing the inner cities. They're not policing Skid Row unless they need to like clean something out so that the Chinese president doesn't think that America sucks. If they really truly like wanted to police all of these areas, they're not going to police the heavily populated areas as much, the heavily populated poorer areas as much. And what they do in these richer areas, which have like a significantly higher level of police presence, what they do in those richer areas is they keep people from stealing from those rich people, from the very smaller population, and the crime rate is easier to decrease. If you send these same cops to the Bronx, it's not going to be as simple as that.
I get that, but here's the thing. Okay, to kind of debunk this, if you want to take some time and go and look at Dale's company, Threat Management, which I encourage everybody here to do, and Lofty might know who they are. Do you know who they are, Potato?
Who? I'm
Threat
sorry?
Management. Okay. They're a company. What happened in Detroit is government services failed. I know that shouldn't be shocking. If you look up Threat Management, which you can watch all their videos, their idea was to deter crime, and they did. They were a private defense agency. That's what I'd categorize them as. And they were able to deter crime by looking at how the specific metrics of criminals and people acted, and they haven't lost one person. And what they did, instead of the cops going, because cops, you have to figure one thing. Police work after there's a problem. Police are waiting for the problem. Then you call 911 after there's an issue. What you call police after there's a problem. Then they report on it, usually don't do anything, and sometimes attack your dog. So
God damn.
Hashtag police are glorified janitors.
Yeah, so
essentially.
like
So you need someone to
they don't do
prevent
anything that like an armed neighborhood watch couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your neighborhood watch can do a lot of good things. So I say you stack things. I say there's not one solution to any problem in the world of, you know, that we live in. It's a complex 3D world. So you have a neighborhood watch, which I think is good, of the Boog, Antifa, and all your favorite Then on top of that, they might not be trained professionals. See, here's the thing. A lot of people aren't going to spend the time that a lot of people will do to learn jujitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and how to use firearms, because those things are very time costly. So you want to pay those people more. And if they have good incentive for defense, which would be provided by the free market, then I think you stack the neighborhood watch. The Boog boys need backup. Who they get the backup from? Private police, like threat management. I don't know if Floppy's in terms
Wait,
of private
so
police,
real quick.
but private police aren't what you
If
think
that's
they'll be.
what some people would like, that's fine. But I don't think that there's anything that you can buy that you can't get through mutual support of each other and sharing information and teaching each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you can't, but sometimes you
I
need a
wouldn't
professional.
I wouldn't want to rent a cop as my backup.
Wait,
Look at it like
okay.
this: if I'm choking, I want my neighbor to come because it'll be faster than you know, calling emergency services. So forget the state. I want my neighbor, but there's complex things. If I'm having a heart attack, my neighbor can't fix that. I need to see a
Well,
specialist.
cops don't help with that shit anyways.
I'm
All they
not
can
I'm
do
not
is
saying
show
cops.
up, fear for
Listen,
their life, and
why?
shoot you.
Yes, because they have no
Especially
incentive
if you're having a seizure.
Yes,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm not arguing for cops. I'm arguing for private security agencies that have an incentive to make sure things aren't bad. Otherwise, they'll get bad reviews. And what do bad reviews do? That's easy case anarchy. And
Or
leaving reviews is an act of anarchy.
I
Trustpilot's
would
very
Wait,
only be
I've got a
okay with
question.
rent-a-cops or rent-a-security if it was already in a free market, though. Because
But
outside of a free market, it's just another paid goon.
Real quick, and then
Yeah,
after I say
something
this,
else.
after this, I gotta get off. It was a good conversation though. So I just looked this up. I remember seeing this a while. So this article is from 2020. Yeah, 2020, and it talks about the area that has the lowest amount of police officers, right? So it's called Santa Ana. Okay, and here, let's go with this. So from 2013 to 2014, the city's number of police per 10,000 decreased by 19%. So yes, that's correct. Decreased by 19%, but then jumped by 20% in 2017. And then it goes to say the violent crime rate in Santa Ana decreased by 27.4% from 2010 to 2013 before they decreased the police. Then from 2013 to 2015, the crime increased by 35.5%. As of 2018, the violent crime rate was 468.39 per 100,000. So again, that's one example, but yeah, I do think it's better to have police in certain areas. And I'm not arguing with you, Jeremy, that in certain areas that probably cops don't need to be there, that's probably the case. And that's probably a problem that's going on in a lot of cities. But me personally, the cities that have the most crime, just where I've been, usually have the most, you usually see the most cop cars. The cities that are quiet, like one of the cities I live in now, you don't see that many cops, but the cops here are more douchebaggy, where you'll get a ticket here just for like going 4 miles of a speed limit. Whereas in the more rough areas, you don't really get ticketed. They focus on the bigger crime, but that's it.
And
that's
just
all
for the record, Danny's arguing for cops. I'm arguing for private police that have defense.
I think you can have both. I think you can have both for sure.
Yes, you could. You could.
I
The
do
reason Dr. Robert Murphy made a very good. Sorry, Danny. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I'll just make the point, Dr. Robert Murphy.
Be well.
And maybe Potato. I'll see you later. I'm gonna.
Oh no, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
but if you're familiar with Dr. Robert Murphy, Me and Lofty are ANCAPs, so if you go with what Dr. Robert Murphy said, okay. But if you go with what Dr. Robert Murphy said, the problem with police isn't a lot of people justify bad behavior and they say, well, I don't like what the cops did, but if you have defense, sometimes it's going to happen. And I say this isn't a consequence of having defense agencies. This is a consequence of one group that has a monopoly on defense agencies. You'll see how quickly people change their behavior when there is no monopoly. If there was no monopoly, that like even with Mad Liberty, vetting somebody to get in, that's because there's not a monopoly. Everybody can decide. It's more direct democracy. But if
theoretically, in the free market, there wouldn't be a chance for monopoly, so that would be okay.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that's all I'm saying.
I was saying. We should decentralize instead of saying we should get private cops, or more specifically, like state cops in this case, because Javier Milei is not a real libertarian or ANCAP. Like the real thing we should do is we should decentralize the power. We should bust their monopoly on force. We should take the state power down because they're currently the reason that crime is so high. And if they weren't, then there wouldn't be a state solution to it. Javier Milei wouldn't be able to come in and say that if we get rid of all these organizations that sap that sap private effort, that sap economic activity for the effect of the public sector, if those things weren't there, the economy and crime would be a lot better off. He even uses some of the same economic justifications for his policies that I would use for the opposite. He agrees with me in a variety of ways that and would diverge strongly and call me a shit leftist not too long later if we got into an argument about it. So that's the thing. Like, we both agree that cutting the size of government is necessary in certain aspects. The difference is I'm not going to claim to cut it and say that I'm going to militarize everything, install a surveillance super state, and have a transition period where it's easier to lock people up. There are more people locked up, and the people are forced onto forced labor systems without pay, and there are more minors in prison as well. The reason that he needs to make it so much easier for minors, and by the way, everybody follow Ben Norton on Twitter. He's a good source on this subject, and his thread is great. But generally speaking, the reasons that there are so many minors involved in crime, it's not because they have great economic opportunities. It's because they were fed a terrible economy to begin with, a terrible social structure to begin with, a terrible relationship between them and the productive classes to begin with. And that's why they are suddenly in crime. That's why they are so easy to recruit. It's the same reason the U.S. military-industrial complex goes to high schools, because you can get a lot of vulnerable people very much on the hook if you tell them that the solution to their economic struggles is to join your gang.
Can fucking confirm. Grew up.
I can agree.
The biggest military base on Earth.
So if you want crime to stop, if you want the military-industrial complex to stop making so many vulnerable fucking people. Tell the government to fuck off and don't give it more power.
Right?
Yes, 100%. We got that. That was a good. Actually, that's a good place to probably end this. Here's the thing I'll say.
Nice little bipolar fucking asshole rant.
Yeah, everybody's like cheering though, so we're all just as bad as you.
Real quick. So, are you guys all anarchists?
Yes.
I am. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So
you've been left alone with the anarchists.
No,
we don't.
He's gone.
So real quick. So if each one of you could just do me a favor and spend 5-10 seconds telling me what you think anarchy is, how you define it.
I seek neither to rule nor be ruled, and I wish to align myself with those on the same mission as me.
So okay. Next person.
Fuck, I'm really bad at this. Every time somebody asks me, I get stuck in a bunch of shit. I'm a subjectivist, and so like I don't believe anarchy has one singular meaning, but like I think at the bare bones, we respect our own personal agency and other people's personal agency. And just like Jeremiah said, we just try to live free and help others to live free.
So okay, so you want everybody to be free, right? People should be free to do what they want.
I mean,
I want to neither rule nor be ruled. If somebody tries to rule somebody else, that's a problem for me too. Gangs oftentimes
So how are you going to take care of
over
that?
regions as well.
well, as we said, like personal. We have community defense, like communal defense and community defense, and all
How is that
sorts of
different from
things.
the government?
Personal defense. Well, it's the people doing it. It's non-hierarchical, and it's
What
much
is a government
more
not people?
accountable.
Like, sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to interrupt.
governments are not people. Governments are entities. They do not have rights. They do not have thoughts. They do not have feelings.
So who's making decisions if the government, like, I mean, I'm sitting, at a desk, like, does my desk make decisions or do people make decisions?
Yeah, government is not of the people. Government is of a small minority ruling over a large majority of people.
But I
It's
don't understand.
hierarchical.
Right, but there's always going to be a hierarchy that exists no matter what. So I don't
Voluntary
understand.
social hierarchy does come and go, but like that's the only place where I agree with that on. Like and
But
maybe like skill hierarchy where but as
so
long
I
as
don't
you
I
accept
so I
are
don't
accepted of like
I sure. So I
power
don't understand
dynamics.
how community, I forget how you worded it. Community
Community defense, it's the
community
people
defense.
living in their community policing their own fucking spaces and
I don't
protecting each
yeah,
other. There's
okay,
not
but I don't
like a
understand why that's different
government
from a
doing.
government.
Okay, well, first off, governments are statist and they rule over people. People are ruled by the government. They take things from the people in order to like create these things. And a lot of times they do not have policing localized. They have people from outside of the neighborhoods policing in the neighborhoods. I mean, in these neighborhoods that are, and they're not from that. In a situation where we localize police, or I hate using that word, in a place, in a situation where we're localizing community defense, um, you have
But I
people in
don't
the community making those decisions. Like the laws aren't even going to be like the same from community to community.
right, but I
So
don't understand why a community defense is different from government. They're they're
so
All
one
of
and the
the
same.
okay,
I have
no,
a
they're not.
marginally different conception to Mike that I think might be helpful to both of you. So instead of considering the enforcement mechanisms for law breaking, consider the reason law breaking happens. And I know that sounds like cliche, and I know I've already gone into this somewhat, but if we had an anarchic society, if we had a society where people were free fundamentally to choose their own way, and if the like basically all
Okay, to
these
respond to that, go ahead.
regulations, all these things that basically mean that the average American commits 3 felonies a day, all these things that mean that the common person is a criminal by default,
That wouldn't be
all of
there.
yeah, and like not to mention that, but in an anarchic society functioning properly, there would be enough social structure support in the form of mutual aid, community gardens, like collective healthcare, collective childcare, things that could handle these issues that cause poverty and cause lack
Can
of
I
access to resources that make people feel like they need to steal, assault, and otherwise brutalize
can I
to begin
interject
with.
real quick?
Sure.
So you're talking about, people breaking laws, but by definition, in an anarchy society, there are no laws. So how can somebody break laws?
Well, there would
That's
it wouldn't be considered laws, it would be
It would be
considered rules.
considered rules.
Yeah. We
That's the
if
But
same
if
thing.
like,
That's just another word for laws.
no.
No, no,
If
no,
I
no.
if
no,
I make
no,
a
no,
rule
no,
in my house, it is not the same as a law over multiple households.
no. And without a government to back it, like if it's not something that like everybody fucking agrees on, it's not even gonna get done. Like whenever you're
Or
talking about a communal
What's the
defense or
difference
a
between a rule and a
community
law?
defense, you have individuals in their area. They're not like policing anything. They just act as defense. Like if somebody starts trying to break someone's NAP or steal their personal property or whatever, or hurt somebody or rape somebody, the community is supposed to step up and stop that. And communal defense isn't just some group, it's everyone. Every individual is part of community defense.
Also, like, just to be clear, the difference between a law and a rule is scope and consent. So
Yeah.
the law, like, is separated from rules by the fact that it applies to everybody by fiat, by the declaration of the authority. So, like, but a rule is something that you can consensually follow, and you will consensually follow as long as you want to participate in somebody's voluntarily generated structure. For
Yes.
instance, it's the difference between a law that says we will steal money from you and beat, electrocute, chemically spray, murder, and or otherwise destroy you, cage, imprison, if you like go above a certain speed, and me saying your bishop can only move diagonally on the chessboard. So if you agree to play chess with me and you move your rook diagonally, I am going to stop playing chess with you. That's a rule. The law would be saying if you move your bishop diagonally, I will put you in the gulag.
Yeah.
That's the difference. You don't want to play chess with me by chess rules, or you don't want to play chess by the weird house rules we have set up. I know there's many ways to play chess. If you don't want to do that, then I simply won't choose to voluntarily engage and associate with you, and I'll probably freeze you out of my game circles because it'll be like, yeah, that's the annoying asshole who tried to move his rook diagonally.
Yeah.
But in your chess example, you can just walk away. In society, if somebody murders you, you can't walk away.
That's not what That's not what a rule versus a law is. And yeah, you can't just walk away from a murder in either a state or a
Yeah.
stateless society. What the fuck
No,
is that
but
argument?
so that argument is so your chess analogy, again, the point that you're making is that you can just get up. If you're not going to play fair, you can just get up and walk away, right?
That's a rule.
Yes.
Okay. But what happens when somebody murders somebody else?
Then they have violated consent by principle and are no better and no differently treated than a state. They will be handled.
Yes.
So
They have exerted their authority,
they
their
will be
final
handled,
say over that person's life. They have forfeited all of their liberties.
Yeah.
They will be handled by whom?
Whoever wants to.
Whoever's there.
Us.
Okay. Who's
the
us?
ones who see it? Everyone.
Me.
If you didn't want to do it, you don't have to. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, princess, you're off the table. It's fine.
Yeah, just stand back. Or try and stop it if you think it's unreasonable. Like, that's what happens.
And it already happens. Like, this
Yeah.
is one of the things. Like, basically, when it comes down to the principles of anarchy and discussions thereof, a lot of the time, people who are against the anarchist camp have unreasonable double standards for anarchists, whereby we must have the perfect solution in case there is only a single lifeboat for all that life management, but the state can just watch people drown on a regular basis. They can get away with whatever the fuck they want, and that doesn't engender nearly this level of criticism about the granular details. But when it comes down to an anarchist society, suddenly we have to address every tiny minutia. The vast majority of murders go unsolved now. So now it's not efficient. 100% murder solves will never happen. So if you're talking about like how do we solve murder, it'd probably be handled better and happen less in anarchy. People would be less fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Slavery kind of tends to make people crazy.
Yeah. If we're just people in a fucking... It's literally... I mean, I get accused of being Alex Jones all the time. I don't fucking care. It's a fucking prison planet. We live in a prison planet. This is the grid, baby. We got wardens and halls that they call streets and cops.
Yes,
so
well, at least you're not all right.
so
Yeah,
if
opposite, to be honest.
So if a group of people in the community become dissatisfied with the way the community enforcement organization, I forget what word you said, and they start to organize themselves and fight back, what then?
I mean,
Why would they need to? In a
why would
voluntary
they?
society, they
Well,
could just
because
say,
maybe
"I
they
don't
don't
want
like
to
the
be
way that the
involved."
community is handling
Well,
people
to
breaking the
be
rules.
honest, they probably like call it consensus.
We disavow. We're gonna separate. Fine, fuck off. We'll be fine.
Do your thing.
If people are confident enough in their
But they
structure,
don't. But they don't just fuck off. They come after you.
Well, then
if they come after us,
they're violating people's consent by trying to do violence on them, and they will have violence done back to them. And sometimes when people fuck around, the find out isn't strong enough, or it's just not fucking
Yeah, but what
there.
happens
That's
when you're not
life.
strong enough to fight them off?
Life sucks.
So then they become the government.
That happens already.
It happens all the time.
Right. So what I'm saying is that this idea that you guys have of anarchy is just, it's not attainable.
It is attainable.
It
You
is
just don't want to
obtainable.
attain it
Anarchy
badly enough to
exists.
stick with the system.
Anarchy exists right now in individuals, in communities, in networks all across the world. The goal is not to have a state or to rule a state. It's to slowly whittle away all rulership of others.
Right, but
It's
what
to
I'm
slowly
saying,
create a hierarchyless voluntary society. We don't want to play by the same rules as y'all. We don't want to seek power the same way as y'all. We will never seek to conquer. We may tear down, but we definitely don't look to conquer. So like you guys get stuck in this top down mindset, and it's very difficult for y'all to see eye to eye with us because we have removed ourselves from that.
And also, just to be incredibly specific, you're arguing in a stream dedicated to Javier Milei. So unless you're going to support the state that he claims to oppose, unless you're going to say that he's wrong too, I think you got the wrong fucking stream to bring this up on, because everybody, including the guy that we're against, is against you.
well, I'm not really following what your point was there, but I don't understand. I don't think that there's any difference between your community organization enforcing rules and a government. There's no distinction.
Then you're
for me
naive.
there.
Well, you're wrong.
So wait, can I? Okay, there fundamentally is, and I can get into my. If you want me
Also,
to
your
define
camera's
it.
off.
Hit him with it, Kareem. You do this so good.
Okay, so I would just define anarchy as simply a decentralized system of creating, maintaining, and enforcing rules of social order based on reputation, signaling plus reputation, combined with customary law. What makes the fundamental difference between governance and government, and I can send you the lecture on this from Dr. Leeson, is that governments is a set of rules, or it could be laws based on customs, that are enforced in a decentralized fashion. Government is, and I still hold to this definition, is an organized monopoly on force in a given territorial region. The fundamental difference is we don't have a monopoly on force, and that monopoly is not exerting control over that. Now, yes,
which is what I said earlier.
Which is kind of how Jeremy broke it down, but I'm just breaking this down. And
if you have a community organization whose job it is to enforce the rules within that organization,
It's not a monopoly on force. It is not a community organization. The community defense comes from everyone.
It's not.
They don't make decisions or anything like that for everybody.
Yeah,
if you want to whittle it down,
it's a community.
Here's the thing, TJ. Like we talked about, but I've talked about because I think what you said, you like DeSantis or whatever. We were talking about DeSantis before with Danny, or was it somebody else? CJ, maybe it was somebody else. But how I break it down is this: maybe instead of trying to look at things as Obi-Wan Kenobi said, only a Sith deals in absolutes. So I actually look at this as a spectrum. Well, no, he isn't, because they do. I agree with Obi-Wan here, because sometimes it's very, very hard. I know anarchists will get mad at me, to make the exact distinction where government ends and where private ordering exists. Jeremy would say to me, a mafia is not a government. Some people would. I'm not going to say which one you think it should be, but I'm going to say there's a spectrum of where private, rules exist and government exists. The difference between community enforcing rules is that there is competition. If you don't like the Amish, you can leave. If you don't like particularly what I'm doing with the podcast, you're like, I don't like the discussion, I'm out. But government does not give you the option to opt out. I can't opt out of Social Security.
Hold on to the podcast forever, Conrad.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, but even so, even in a world where we assume, you know, the entire world is
where,
yeah, exactly. Even in a world where, you know, we have your ideal situation, if I don't like how the community is organizing the rules and I go somewhere else, I'm still subjected to another community's rules.
No, you just
it's the same
I
thing.
mean,
Correct.
or you can make your own, or you can go off by yourself, or you can just keep shopping.
In a true anarchist paradigm, like, and this is where I differ from a lot of right fucks, like little cuck boys with their Hoppa profile pictures and copy started.
I like Triple H.
So like if and I'm not saying, by the way, Hoppa specifically, I'm saying people with Hoppa profile pictures. There is a difference. So
you want me to change my profile pic?
So basically,
No.
like the thing, this is a blind spot for a lot of them, that they say that you shouldn't be able to opt out, that you agreed to these things, especially in what are called covenant communities. A lot of these people just want you to remain attached to the system, regardless of whether or not you agree with it. For me, for my money, I think systems should be resilient to disagreements, and they should be able to actually change and adapt. And if they're not able to do that, they will collapse quickly. And I also think that B, if somebody wants to like leave with their own personal place, that should be an option left to them. You should be able to take your house off of the grid of your community, and if you're not, then the community becomes artificially imposing. So for me, my version of anarchy, like my extreme like anarchist vision of the future in a totally rulerless way, you would be able to just say, yeah, nah, I'm good. My house is bouncing off this network. And you would just be able to say, but, yep, no more.
Yeah, and I mean, and in situations like that, you wouldn't even necessarily have to move, because like if it wasn't a true, completely free anarchist state, I'm not going to say state, that's misleading. Anarchist lifestyle or whatever, people may disagree with other people on what, and may agree with you, and they may choose to still like do trade and interact with you, and it's like nobody else has power over them to stop them. So like
decentralization and spontaneous order.
Yeah.
Cadillac, not economic.
I think where your idea of anarchy is flawed is it's like what you said. People need to be resistant to disagreement.
No. Resilient. I mean that they should be able to tolerate it. That they should be able to understand that other people can and should be able to disagree with them. And if they aren't, then they're establishing an ideological monopoly.
That's impossible. You can't have a society where people will always agree or respectfully disagree on things.
Okay.
All
Here's
the time.
the thing.
If we
don't form more cooperative structures, and here's the other thing. I'm a pessimist. I'm a doomer motherfucker. I'm more cynical and pessimistic than you will ever be. I think we are all going to die. I think we're going to die in rivers of blood and years of darkness, the likes of which will make Revelations look like a children's story. I think we are headed for nuclear apocalypse. I think we are headed for every dystopia that has ever come up, because we have not decided to make better choices with how we organize society.
Okay, but you're getting off topic.
I'm not getting off topic. Discussion. This is the topic. If we cannot organize better, we will fucking die. That is the reality. So if the choice is between trying something that might not work and going with the thing that certainly will end in oblivion, I will fucking Sisyphean task my way up this hill with this boulder, no matter how many times I get fucking crushed.
Well, and there are anarchist groups out there and communities and networks and shit that have been working off of consensus for long ass times. Like, you just don't get to see them in your everyday lives because we're not out there trying to conquer anything. We're just trying to set up things and trying to make things better.
And they're demonized.
Where are these anarchy societies?
All over
Are they
the
here in the
place.
United States?
Yes,
Actually,
everywhere.
I'll make a.
There's some
Actually,
in America that are very old, even like very old.
yes. There's
Home
okay.
Washington.
Well, no, that one's weird because like it has a libertarian
I mean,
shell.
there's Washington anarchist thing.
There
There's the
are like
now.
unincorporated anarchist islands and stuff out there
If
though.
Like Slab
if
City,
you,
for instance.
okay, but okay, I'll give you some example because there are some examples that I know. Me and Mike have talked about them. Anarchia in Greece, Rehova in Syria, the Zapatistas, particularly in Mexico, a very good case study. Chiran, depending on how you look at it. New Hampshire's getting closer. I would also say that there are communities like the Amish who are somewhat close to that and do have high rates of consent. However, there's a bigger group that, if you want to factor this in, you can. If you really look at the world, this includes Argentina in a sense. Yes, most people have governments on paper, but if you look at the Fund for Peace and Prosperity, which is a libertarian, just a political science type organization, they're not libertarian. I actually think they're more Democrat. Most of what they classify in the world, most world's governments are classified as one, either weak or failed. And I can show you the chart. That means, yes, on paper, the Democratic Republic of Congo has a government. But if you go to the government for any services, including protection, it doesn't even work. It doesn't work. And that even includes Mexico. So here's the thing. If most of the world does not have a functional government, something other than the state must be producing social order to the extent it exists, which I'm not saying is good, but it's a better relevant institutional alternative. And that's most of the world. Most of the world has a weak or failed government. So they're somehow socially cooperating without the state, even though they have a government on paper. Hopefully that makes sense.
Can you send me that study? I would actually really like to read that.
Okay, Fund for Peace. It's actually a map.
Okay.
So my overall point is this: that what a government is largely there's one thing that all governments technically have in common, but that's a separate question. There's my point is that government is largely subjective.
Okay.
Government isn't though.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I mean, there is a big difference. The difference between governance and not being governed. Those are very different.
I mean, if you have a society in which people have agreed upon rules, you can any rational person can make the argument that you've established a government.
Oh, so now you're appealing to emotion here. You're saying that if somebody is like saying the things we're saying, they must just be irrational. You want to appeal to that gut instinct. Say, nah.
Okay, any person
because
any person can make the argument that you've established a government, rational or irrational, whatever. My point is, any person can make the argument that you've set up a government. If you have rules in your community, you can make the argument that you've established a government.
No.
And if my mother had wheels, then she would be a bike.
I mean, in a non-hierarchical society, there is no such thing as a ruler or governance.
Okay.
And if somebody tries to do that, then it wouldn't be called ruling. It would be called trying to take somebody's consent.
Okay. And like, just to be clear, I can just absolutely taste the Roundup because like we are being drugged through the weeds here with the semantical distinctions. I was just actually reading anarchist literature instead of pretending that we're wrong automatically.
Okay, I'm not
a political science major, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, he's a political science major. Actually does a good job with his studies. But TJ, here's the thing. Okay, fair enough. I'm not going to make people. I actually don't like because people who are objectivist Randians want to fight me, and they're like, "All right, give me your argument." They're like, "Read this." I'm like, telling me to read.
I already gave my argument. At this point, I would just say read "Statism and Anarchy" by Bakunin.
That's a good book. Actually, I prefer Conquest for Bread by Bakunin or Anarchy by Eric.
Conquest of Bread. That's more of a Conquest of Bread, in my opinion, is not a newbie book. That is you are an anarchist. This is trying to convince you of anarchist communism.
Okay.
That's so my overall. I don't want to say this. my overall confusion is, well, let me say it this way. My overall takeaway is that really the only difference between the anarchy society that you set up with rules and, say, a government on the scale of like the United States is really just that. It's scale.
No, it's
no.
also a
consent.
monopoly on violence. It's a lack thereof
The
consent
United
or
States doesn't
creation
have a
thereof.
monopoly on violence.
Oh my
Municipalities all
God.
have
Are you
Government
kidding
fucking
me?
does.
Are you shitting me?
The
No,
fact-
I'm not
No,
shitting
just
you.
no, just
fact
no.
the fact that there are multiple monopolies does not mean that they're not monopolists.
You can't have multiple monopolies by definition.
Yes, you can by
Yes.
definition, or they never would have existed. The whole point of a
Actually,
monopoly is it's trying to form too much of a trust.
No, the whole point of a monopoly is that it's one. And if you have multiple municipalities, if you have multiple states, you don't have a monopoly. All of those things
Yes,
each
you
have
do.
their own police.
The
force.
federal government has a
Okay,
monopoly.
let's just change a word slightly so that he can calm down. The American government is monopolizing violence, just like every other government and nation out there.
I'm just gonna show this because this is pissing me off, and I'm bipolar motherfucker over here. I'm
And with-
sharing my screen.
Okay,
Just
and
chill
within those spaces with which those governments exist, they do have a monopoly on violence.
Monopolistic competition. Invest-a-fucking-pedia. I have it up on my screen.
Yes, I'm aware. It's an oxymoron.
Monopolistic competition exists when many companies offer competing products or services that are similar but not perfect substitutes.
Yes, I know.
Literally an example of multiple monopolies competing with one another for the ultimate monopoly status. You are a monopoly when you have monopolized a significant enough amount of the market. No perfect monopoly has ever fucking existed. Of course there's competition in monopoly. What?
Here, I'll settle this. How about this, TJ? Let me send you Dr. Leeson's lecture. It's probably the best thing I've ever read on this thing. Then you can make a distinction where and if you see the scale, because there is a fundamental scale to determine this. I will leave you with this. Here, I'm not even going to tell you to read any literature. I'm going to show you this map. Look at this map. This is a fragile states index. This isn't done by me. This is actually probably done by more bureaucratic Fauci type people that don't.
Oh no.
But measuring fragility, risk vulnerability in 179 countries. Potato, this is what country data, analysis, methodology. I'm not going to go into specific things, but this is bad. This is not good. And stable is green. And blue is sustainable. Now,
is this loading for everyone? Because
this is referring to. So how are they measuring stable versus not stable or sustainable?
Sure. Okay. So we have a fragile state, and if I click on these, I can keep them or exclude them. Basically, what they're doing is, if you look at their analysis, sorry. Give me 1 second, because I haven't been on here. So they have reports that looks at fragile states, and it's a bunch of bureaucratic language. You can see what they break it down into. Oh boy, I do not. This is why I do not like these reports. They're not bad, but they take a look at like Ukraine, wellspring of potential. So they'll take a look at these different things. Very stable, more stable. How are they breaking it down? Data for peace, conflict warning, combat violence, security guard. This is how you can tell, violence based on that trading capacity, public data available, standard security compliance. So like basic indicators.
So if you go to the methodology, it'll be more specific.
Yeah. Now,
Origin of the Fragile States Index, the CAST framework. The genesis of most indices is to begin with a concept of what needs to be measured, followed by the development of a methodology that hopes to perform that measurement. The FSI followed a very different trajectory, whereby the idea for the index occurred subsequently to the development of its own methodology. FSI traces its origin to the creation of FFP's conflict assessment system tool, CAST, that was developed in the 1990s as a framework for policymakers and field practitioners to be able to better understand and measure conflict drivers and dynamics in its conflict environments. The CAST framework has been widely peer-reviewed, and continued usage of the framework by many of these same professionals, blah, 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 advertising, practical application, quantitative data, pre-existing quantitative data sets, generally from international and multilateral statistical agencies such as the UN, World Bank, World Health Organization, are identified for their ability to statistically represent key aspects of the indicators. Qualitative review, separately, a team of social science researchers independently reviews each of the 178 countries, providing assessments based on key events from that year compared to the previous one, recognizing that every data set and approach has different strengths and weaknesses. The step helps to ensure that the blah, blah, blah. Three data streams are then triangulated, and then content analysis, which is like sub-indicators. Each of these broken into Boolean search phrases and applied to global media data to determine the level of saliency of issues for each of those sub-indicators in each country. The raw data provided by commercial content aggregator includes media articles, research reports, and other qualitative data points collected from over 10,000 different English language sources around the world. So basically, they collect a bunch of articles, a bunch of reports, a bunch of studies, a bunch of everything. They break it into data, probably put it in a spreadsheet. Probably take that spreadsheet and methodologically analyze it with their qualitative review team, and then they say that their data streams are then triangulated, applying a set of rules to ensure the data sets are integrated in a way that leverages the strength of each different approach. And then at the end, it says the final FSI index product is intended as an entry point into deeper interpretive analysis for the user in line with the CAST framework approach. Though an index inherently ranks different countries, making some more fragile than others. Ultimately, the goal of the FSI is to measure trends and pressures within each individual state. By identifying the most salient pressures within a country, it creates the opportunity for deeper analysis and planning by policymakers, blah, blah, blah. So basically what they seem to do, like focus on access to natural resources when you and like, you know, social structure and all this other shit. So their methodology, they say overall overview of FSI methodology indicators: cohesion, economic, political, social, and cross-cutting stability. And basically they go through these things and like their ability to stay together as a society, their economic stability, their political like fragility in terms of like, you know, uprisings, the reliability of the government structures, the et cetera, and then social, like whether or not there's social tension and shit like that. Like basically they're trying to figure out which places are on the verge of or basically in the process of collapse based on those factors, if that helps you, TJ.
What's the name of this? Is this a study or a report?
This is a report, and it's
a report based on a bunch of studies.
Yeah, okay. I'll link it in the chat for you.
It's essentially a meta study.
And then last question for you guys: Who's going to, so in an anarchy system where you just have a small community? I'm assuming, right? It's kind of the idea there.
Can be a small community, can be a big community.
Depends on what the people are willing to bear.
Federated communities.
So
generally be smaller, but yeah.
Okay, so who issues a currency?
Whoever the fuck you want.
Yeah, assuming you have currency.
People can generally agree on standard.
I would probably start a community like this, especially in terms of like pocket communities trying to compete with the state. I would probably say XMR would be a great startup.
I mean, that just depends on the community, though.
I don't agree with there's not one answer to that. Scotland and Switzerland, if you study them, had competing currencies and they work. Now, a modern example of that is, and you can go to my channel, Crypto.World. I review every day a new goofy meme coin. Some of them make it, some of them don't. And I see competing currencies in crypto work. There's also gold for tangible assets. And I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but after the central bank in Somalia collapsed, would you take a guess on what they did because the paper notes broke down.
United States dollar.
No. You know what they did? Warlords who had the capital took that ability and imported new notes and put them into circulation.
Oh
I know what you're counterfeiting. Yes.
And also like, so two things. First off, yeah, because
there's no way it's not counterfeiting.
Because you've explained that before, so I didn't want to interrupt you, but I already knew that. Like, I figured that you might have a new audience for this stream tonight because like more people are like coming in. But basically, yeah, so that's a possibility. And then there's always the possibility that societies like this will just rely less on currency to begin with. If I can trade like, you know, a bag of tomatoes for a bag of potatoes, I might just do that rather than, you know, like think there needs to be some like centrally agreed upon intermediary of fucking face paper.
Yeah, but currencies always make it easier to trade.
Sure. But like, so let me ask, how much do you like have in terms of cryptocurrency, or how familiar are you with that, TJ?
I mean, I'm a licensed stockbroker.
Okay, so all right.
I'm a financial professional. So I don't own any cryptocurrency. I would never touch it.
So I would recommend, in terms of an anarchist society trying to get started off, probably XMR. Not because like it's going to be a stable one, but because it's going to be less traceable. So it's going to be easier for you to get your shit done, especially if it's spicier shit that involves, you know, maybe hibiscus flower. So, like, what I'm suggesting is basically like get started in whatever way you can that's covert. And I'm also, by the way, just to assuage your concerns in that regard, because, you know, you're coming at it from a sort of like current economics perspective. And you know, I can get that. What I would say is don't consider it a speculative asset. All the people who do that are dumb as fuck. Get what you need in the moment, trade it in XMR, trade it back to dollars. Easy as. Wash hands. And then after you're done with that transaction, you've got all the things you needed insulated with a slight amount of increased cost for the transaction in XMR. And then whatever else you need to do in terms of just trying to get established past the economies of state, you could just, you know, use the dollar until the dollar collapsed, which it eventually and inevitably will. We're heading for that apocalypse, as I'm sure you're aware.
Well, yeah, and some of these communities are not going to want to use currency at all, unless it's like an external thing, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I mean, using currency is it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to have effective trade without a currency. So,
right. Which means that a lot of societies would
yeah, I'm just saying, like, why would they need to make their own currency if their only interactions through currency will be external? And some of them will be that way.
let's take for example, so in a society in which you don't have a currency, you're talking about trading tangible goods, right?
I mean,
correct, but look at it this way. I have to agree with Mises and kind of TJ here, as Mises defines currency as a quintessential praxeological tool for the elucidation. What does all that mean? It just basically means that it's not always, while barter is good, it's not always practical. If you're going to leave cows at the dealership, that's going to be weird. And two, sometimes the measurement of things becomes difficult with profit and loss without currency. And that was the main problem of the Soviet Union.
Well, and also too, so with currency, you can actually save. You can't save potatoes because they expire.
Like, there are plenty of ways to non-expire your potatoes, but like my general point,
I don't like rotting.
There are plenty of ways. You could dehydrate them.
Okay, let's
powder. They're like, so what I'm going to say though that I think you will appreciate is that, like, if you wanted to have a currency, there's nothing wrong with that, and a society of an anarchist nature would just have to make that that currency valuable to outside parties. So if your currency was, for instance, like, you know, fucking commie coin, you could make that currency valuable by offering like shares in worker-owned businesses as what backs it. Like, you could do things like that, for instance, or like, you know, and this is the other thing that I think you'll appreciate. Currencies are valuable even in an anarchist context because they're fungible, and like the ability for like something to be infinitely cut and, you know, like sort of add to another pool in order to increase the overall size of the pool, rather than like, you know, oh, I'm going to trade maybe a fundamentally unequal potato for an unequal tomato. They both have different values, different utilities. The currency is an intermediary between the two, so it makes sense to have that. It makes sense to say, well, I will pay you, you know, $10 for your 20-pound bag of russets. And you know, then they can say $10, that's too little, I want 15, and you can say 12.50. Haggling is important, and having a unit of like measurement is actually useful in that regard. Not all people would want to do that.
There are some anarchists who would rather just sit there and haggle each and everything because they believe in more subjective values.
Sure. But like, so what I'm saying is, because it's anarchist, if TJ wanted to make his anarchist society, but he wanted to base it in gold-backed greenbacks, you could do that. You would not be stopped.
Yes.
And if Mike wanted to have his society based, their society? I actually forget your pronouns.
Their
society based on like the onion, for instance. I will trade you a certain amount of onions for a certain amount of oil. Then that would be totally acceptable. It's whatever you decide. Value is inherently subjective. Like, there's
and if it came to a day where TJ and I wanted to trade, we'd just have to sit down at a table and hash out some new fucking negotiations, because like that's what people have to do when they do things differently.
And like that happens in Forex all the time, as I'm sure TJ is aware. And like, so generally speaking, there would need to be like, you know, cross negotiations if people did want to trade. But a lot of these anarchist societies, they'd probably just want to be left the fuck alone. They'd probably be pretty insular. So like that probably wouldn't even come up in certain cases, and it wouldn't need to.
I mean, the more nomadic type of anarchist trades labor all the time too, for just random shit. It just depends on who, what wants, where, what, all those things. Who wants what, where. That's what I was trying to say. Jeez.
And I'm sure that like TJ, as somebody as well versed in economics as you claim to be, you would know the golden water paradox, whereby if you're in the middle of the desert, the value is going to be different for the gold in the water than if you're in the middle of a city next to a drinking fountain.
Yeah, well, I don't really think that gold's that valuable, other than people use it, have historically used it as currency.
It is good for fungibility, though. Like, it is fungible. Like, if you look at gold as just a stable mineral.
So gold is an element. It doesn't decay, right? Yeah. So going back to the potato. So let's not use potatoes as an example. Let's use chickens, right? You can't save chickens because chickens die and they become worthless.
Well,
so that's what
they reproduce for.
Yeah, but you're missing my point. Yeah, I mean, you're missing my point. So the point is that even like tangible items, there are certain
I want to freeze my clock, damn it. Go ahead, sorry.
There are certain tangible items that just decay over time, right? And they just become worthless. So that's what the currency is there to resolve, is because so that you can save currency and it doesn't decay.
And to lubricate the economic calculation problem.
And also, not every anarchist cares about tangibility, and they don't really care about saving either.
Especially if they're more like East Asian influenced or Christian anarchist. Like if you're a monastic anarchist, you don't give a shit.
Yeah, some anarchists absolutely hate any form of nepotism, even lighter forms of it. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't like build a house and let my kids have it or something, though.
Well, I'm just, my thing is, and this is my thing, I'm that asshole. I'm the entire bottom of the political compass. I am 0% authority. Any type of that somebody wants to do is fine by me. I will support that.
Yeah, me too.
As long as like we're there for that. So like if you, TJ, wanted to go extreme and cap off to the far, well, actually it's this way on the screen, off to the far right, like, and say that you wanted to have your well, not even, I mean, because a lot of the time they're Austrian economics, and that's a contradiction in terms. It's really Austrian catalactics, but that's me being a Mises nerd. Like ultimately, if you wanted to go form your catalactic currency-based hyper-capitalist anarchy, and you could do that without infringing upon other people's, go the fuck for it. I will support that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so okay. So just to recap. So in your society, you can have a community that creates rules and creates a currency, but it's not a government. Is that right?
As long as the rules are consensually agreed to, it's no more a government than chess.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
and
if
they
the
have to
rule,
be consensually changeable at any given time, like via consensus or something.
Yeah, there has to be a mechanism for actual
But it
movement.
can't be democratic because democratic is statist and controlling in its top up.
well, but I mean, okay, so if everybody's consensually agreeing to the rules, why have the rules in the first
No,
place?
consensus is not the same thing as being consensually agreeing. Okay, when people use consensus, sometimes it's called consensual democracy, and I hate that, and it makes me want to throw up. But basically, everybody gets a say, everybody gets a chance to have interactions. If people are like definitely not okay with things, they can like hard no and explain why. And usually people care about that. Like the whole idea is that you create community togetherness so that we have a capacity to get together and discuss these things openly and give everybody a say. And it's not hierarchical at all. Like nobody steps up at the end and goes, well, okay, more people like this than that. You don't find a majority rules kind of agreement. You find a comfortable spot for everybody. And if that can't be found, you either alter it or you just don't do it.
What if another anarchy society decides to go on some kind of imperialist rampage
They're
and
not
tries to,
Well,
anarchists
then they're
anymore.
not anarchists anymore, and they're trampling on other people's consent
well,
violently.
it
Then,
doesn't, but whether they're anarchists or not, that's could be a situation that you face in your anarchy society.
no, they definitely are not anarchists if they're
Well,
going
I'm not
out
saying
using
they're
force on
anarchists anymore.
people.
I'm saying that they're trying to take you over.
Yeah. So here's the thing: if they decide to do that, they'd better have the numbers and capability, because if they try to rule us in the same way that the archons have done historically, if they try to become archonic, we will have the same response to them that we did before we established our own societies.
Well, yeah, and all of these decentralized communities are more than capable of federating. That's been done in the past as well.
And it's like, what if the local gang takes over your house? That's a legitimate question.
When you say
now.
federating, what do you mean?
The federating of the groups, like voluntarily working together.
Societies confederate.
Like you have two groups, right? They decide to work together. They make a federation
for this
if
reason,
you will, and they cooperate while still remaining separate groups.
Isn't that just like another NATO type thing?
No.
Not all alliances are NATO.
If you confederate with your with consensus, theoretically there would be consensus all around, and it would be something. It takes a little bit longer than, like, say, democracy or somebody top down deciding things. But like, if people are covering, like if people are being like actual anarchists and they do know that you will always have to guard from tyranny, and why wouldn't they have already even talked about this? Because a lot of consensus happens off of, well, what if this happens? Shouldn't we all talk about what we're going to do? And like, basically, so everybody will get together and discuss these things and have plans in order. And as things change, obviously those plans will change too. But like, there's no hierarchy in it. Nobody gets to decide for everybody else. No vote gets to decide for everybody else. And
like,
it's too fluid for a lot of statist people to understand, because these federations, they are for specific reasons. They are not for like long-term use. They go bye-bye after that.
And like, just to be clear, Oxford Dictionary separates two types of federations, and the first one that it gives, and I'll give the definition and the example sentence. A group of states with a central government but independence in internal affairs, the Russian Federation. That's one definition. And then the second definition that they offer is an organization or group within which smaller divisions have some degree of eternal autonomy. The best tag team in the World Wrestling Federation. That's literally what Oxford went with, is WWF. I think that's fucking hilarious.
That
but
is
like,
great.
but like that is what it is. It's a large series of groups. Each one of them gets to like determine certain aspects of how, like what next thing happens at SmackDown or Rage in a Cage or whatever. I don't fucking care. But the point is that they all have some degree of autonomy over how that operates, how that concludes. And then they all put on the same show. They all get paid, except if, there is corruption, which, let's just say Jesse Ventura has some interesting things to say about Hulk Hogan and McMahon. But generally speaking, and shout out to Glenn Jacobs, still Facebook friends with me after all these years. But like that's an example of a consensual and existing federation that already exists. They don't need a government to say, hey, we need you to wrestle for us. We need you to put on fucking shows for us. They just organized by voluntary association, and now they've got like the entire like boomer generation hooked on their stuff.
Yeah. So, and with that, I am probably going to end it there unless anybody has anything.
Yeah, I did not take a piss break like you and Danny did. I gotta go drain my cock.
Oh, Jesus.
All right.
You have to drain your balls. That's where your pee is stored.
Yeah, and I've got such massive balls.
I hope you can empty it.
All right, guys. So we'll see what happens with Javier Milei. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Insanity
it's
is
probably going to be fascism.
Jeremiah. So go check out Jeremiah and Insanity is free on YouTube. Also, Agorist Nexus. He's a happy guy. Check out Mad Liberty and definitely join up, as they have some awesome people. Also, check out Conquering the Divide, my co-host Danny. YouTube channel. TJ, do you want to shout out anything?
Please stay away from crypto. Please don't do that.
I actually have a crypto channel, so I can't do that. But
okay, well, I mean, be very, very careful with crypto.
I understand.
Careful is like urge caution in all things. Especially this one, because the government is watching like a hawk. Get a Wasabi wallet if you can. Use Bitcoin. Get XMR. Get Pirate Chain.
All right, everyone.
Talk, guys.
So I want to thank you. This is Kareem with the Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self-governance. We will be back with you soon.
Thanks for having me on.